So I'll just kind of go in the order that they're in the budget book, so I'll call them up just so they know when it's their turn. I'll let the department head review the recommendations. If I have any notes or changes that hadn't been made yet, we can note those now, and we'll provide you with updated copies later. Yeah, any questions?
I have section 4 says administration on the top of it, and section 5 says administration, so.
So section 4 is most of the admin, section 5 is general assistance only,
Okay.
and then section 10 is maintenance. Or, no, I'm sorry,
No,
section
that's-
9 is maintenance.
Okay, so today we're gonna look at section 4.
We'll look at 4, 5, and 9.
4, 5, and 9. Okay.
So 4 is administration, 5 is general assistance,
Yep.
and 9 was,
Maintenance.
Facilities maintenance.
Is that the order?
You wait. All right, so first is city clerk.
Yeah.
I have made a couple of changes after my departmental meeting. I have a few different departments you'll see tonight, so the clerk stuff is within this packet, but there's a few other things. I think it's page 2, 3, and 4 in here. That is your clerk related.
Already.
Oh,
Continue
Thank
that
you.
one. So you.
all right.
Sorry, snuck it in.
Short
Good
of,
evening, counselor. So you should have city
hold on,
clerk.
hold on, time out,
Yes,
time
sir.
out. Short of being a complete idiot, is this replacing or an additional to?
Replacing.
Replacing.
You can-
Replacing what was there.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but
the whole thing?
That spreadsheet at the front is not something I created, so I think the 2 pages behind that, you can just tear out and pop in those.
you're gonna talk about this.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yes,
all
I
right.
put in the match.
Sorry.
No, it's good if you're clear.
I
So,
get it. I'm not doing anything, but I don't want-
you will see that my budget for the city clerk's department looks like it's got an increase of $35,000 this year. That is in part because one of my former deputies was a shared position with clerk and highway, and so her salary was half budgeted in my department and half in highway. In this coming year, I'm just pulling her out completely into my department, so you should see the reduction on the other end. On the narrative, it breaks out the salary by person, and that accounts for my 2 deputies that are unionized. That's including their July 1 built-in increase. So my payroll is $168,814 for myself and 2 deputies.
Can I just ask you a question? So you said that it was split, you said it was an additional 36,000, but half of this salary is like 22.
Correct, half of that 45-ish was coming out of the Public Works budget for Marcia, and so I've pulled the whole position into mine, and then I have some increases to office supplies and training that amount to the rest of the increase. Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry.
No, so it's like $32,000 difference between FY '24 and '25. And if you split that in half, it's only 22, so I didn't know where that extra 10 was.
I have an increase to training.
I think.
It's just in the payroll
Right,
line item.
payroll only.
Yeah.
The spreadsheet has actuals for payroll year to date.
I was looking at the budget.
I had 136 last year and 168 this year. Is that the numbers you have?
Yeah.
Tony, on this sheet that you gave us, it looks like financial year 24 is only 18,000. Is that just a typo?
It's just because we've done a software change, and so at the time that I did this back in December, we had switched our payroll, And so I had only accounted for what was in our munis system, not in the paycheck system.
But then the spreadsheet that's in the binder has the full FY '24 year-to-date payroll.
I'll double check my numbers, Tammy.
Okay.
The formulas could
It's
be
just
off on my.
like $10,000 off, 12,000 something.
Okay. And so then my office supply line, I'm requesting, after meeting with
Bless you.
interim manager, I did make a reduction of $700 to my original request. It is still up from last year by just under $1,000. The reason for that is our city vault. The records within that vault are deteriorating more every year. And with vital records, those are permanent records, so that's your birth, death, marriage, burial permits. And some of them are just sheets of paper in actual binders, and so as we access those binders to issue records, they're getting worn and ripped and crumpled. And so my staff have been working through those, putting them in sheet protectors, trying to make fiscally responsible options to preserve them longer, that are less expensive than having a company like CoFile come in and do a full records preservation. So with that project, we still have well over 50 binders to go through, and some of those have over 400 records each. And so the additional cost to supplies is just in sheet protectors, some additional binders, as we just kind of revamp and do our best to keep the citizen records well-preserved and easy to access. I had originally included some money to have some additional cabinets in my department, but I think I can hold off on those for another year and use what we have as a short-term solution so that my budget doesn't have any additional increases that are something we can wait for.
And there's the potential that there are empty cabinets in City Hall that just need to get rekeyed. They lock, but they don't have a key for them. So rekeying them is a cheaper option than buying new.
Dues and memberships has also increased, and I've broken out on the narrative page what organizations we are currently members of and how many annual memberships that we currently buy. And so each clerk does have their own membership. In these organizations, the clerk holds the primary, and then you get a reduced rate for your subordinates that are under you. I do still account for Tina to have membership, as she does still hold her certification, and because she helps so much with elections and backfilling vacations and things, she doesn't have those trainings. It could put her at a risk for not being qualified to do some of the functions of the clerk's office. And in case you want to know, the first one is the Maine Town and City Clerks Association. I have just left you acronyms. The other one is New England Association of City and Town Clerks, and then the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And all of those have reduced rates for training, licenses, certifications, and other programs for city clerks that benefit the citizens of Ellsworth. With the higher qualifications we have, the more services we can offer with a better efficiency and competency. Training has increased. I've doubled my training line from 2,500 to 5,000. And in the narrative, I've kind of broken out how I intend to spend that over the next year. I'm currently a licensed clerk of Maine. My 2 new staff need to obtain their licensure as part of their hiring agreement. That takes about 250 hours of course time. And so I'm able to get that completed for them with 6 to 8 trainings per year through Maine Municipal and the Town and City Clerks Association. Those range from $30 to $80 per class, depending on how long that class is, half-day, 1-day, 2-day class. And so I have, their schedule for the whole year is not out yet, but I am anticipating about 6 classes for each. I have 1 year to obtain an additional continuing education of 100 hours to obtain my relicensure as a city clerk. So there is a significant amount of training this year, mostly due to the new staff in my department. I'm also requesting attendance at the NEMC class this year, which is part of the New England Association group, and it's a conference held in Vermont. It's a whole 10-day course. And you get a New England certification through that program, not just the state certification. I've also put in a request for a scholarship for that program. And the request for scholarship that Glenn and I was able to submit we requested that they would cover 80% of the cost. So the amount in here is just that 20% that we would be eligible to contribute to that grant if I get that. And I should know soon if I've been able to get that. So that brings my department to a total of $176,909, which is about a 25% over last year. I'll double check the numbers and make sure my formulas are not just off. Are there any questions?
It would be helpful to see the percent increase with that staff transition removed, just to see what that looks like without that.
Okay. I can do that.
I mean, it makes sense that the staff person goes there, it's just helpful.
Sharing staff is always very hard when you have two department heads, two different locations, trying to share one person. The employee that I used to share is still doing a lot of the same tasks, just solely being budgeted out of my department.
So is the highway department gonna come in requesting a legal assistant, an assistant?
Yeah, so the, not just the highway department, public works, we're talking out a like program administrator that'll be shared between the three of them.
I'm just gonna ask a question, even though it's the same question, but I still don't totally get it. So our budget for last year was $136,935. And the year to date, that means whatever we've spent so far, right? So 113. So then what's the 18,200?
That's just we had two softwares last year for payroll. And so the $18,000, we had through September 8th, we're using Munis for our payroll. And so when I compiled my budget back in December, the new payroll software had not been making journal entries into Munis yet, so I was only able to obtain data from one program, not both programs. I think Ann was able to get those journals done after I had already
Gotcha.
done my budget.
Yeah, so it just is a number that doesn't actually mean anything,
No.
basically.
It's a portion of the number that Ann has in
Yeah,
the first
okay.
spreadsheet.
Got it.
In payroll, this is kind of a general question, but for Tony as well, payroll includes benefits?
It does not, it's just hourly rates.
Just hourly rates, so where?
No FICA tax, no benefits, those are in their own department that you'll see later tonight.
Joint
Okay.
office?
Joint, okay.
Oh, I think.
Employee benefits.
It's
Employee
its own
benefits
category.
with-
It's
oh,
own
it's in our own
category.
category now.
Okay. So it's not considered part of the city clerk's sub-budget? It's
Correct.
The admin budget
Right.
generally, okay. Another question I have, and sorry, Tony, you went first, I've got like broader questions.
That's
This is
okay.
my first time through. On Friday, a citizen brought up the point of that we hadn't seen an estimate of the total budget.
Mhm.
Is that in here?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, do we know when we'll have that?
I would like to have it for you by the next workshop
Tomorrow?
tomorrow, yeah.
Not having data available.
That's fine, I just,
Yeah,
if
I
someone,
know.
if someone asks me, I wanna be able to have an
Yeah.
answer, so that's fine, I'm not in any hurry about that, it's helpful, thank you.
It's safe to say it's not going down.
I'm safe to say, not this year anyway.
Okay.
And then just, you'll see at the bottom of my spreadsheet there, there's also, I have revenue for my department, so I've estimated my revenue for this year.
What was this date through? The actuals? Was that,
End of December.
okay.
Have the amount of fees gone down, or you're assuming fewer fees? Or?
I've just seen a little, a reduction in new businesses, and looking at the last couple of years, the budget number we've estimated for, the clerk fees, that first item, has not been reached, and so I would rather underestimate the revenue and collect more than continue to overestimate it and have a shortfall. Any more questions? I don't know who's next, Matt. Is it me?
Wanna do elections?
Moving right along. So also in the handout I gave you, I have made a change to my elections budget, so you should have three pieces of paper in the packet I handed you that you can replace in your book now or later, whichever is convenient.
Do it now or you'll never, ever figure it out, ever.
I have the dates at the bottom of mine, so you should be able to see the newest date.
Oh, thank
And
you.
hopefully that will help, I don't know.
That's awesome. You gotta have, yeah.
Dates are good, but still,
Like a big number in the corner.
just saying you don't wanna be like 1815, 1815 in the future.
So there is also a small increase to my election budget this year, about $3,700. That is mostly in payroll and rental costs, which there's not a lot of control over for me, unfortunately. I'm gonna just make some more room. So payroll, in case you are not privy, there is a presidential election in November, which means I require more staff than a referendum election. So 2020 presidential, we had hired 59 election workers to run that, whereas this past March primary, I think we had like 36 or something. I don't know where Tina's at. So because of November coming in this budget cycle, I have included 50 workers, which is still a reduction from 2020. I'm not entirely comfortable with only having 50 workers, but I also struggle getting people to work. So I don't know that I'll get 50 workers. And I'm fortunate to have Tina and Marcia at my disposal. I pay Larry a fair sum of money to borrow Marcia for elections. So they, I think, with their experience, they can offset a lot of those part-time election workers. And the two of them together are the equivalent of 10 or 12 part-time workers. So I do think with the full-time staff we have here, I can make up that, but that's why there's an increase in payroll. It's just an increased number of workers for November. Also in November, because of the presidential election, we do central absentee processing. Last presidential, we had about 3,000 absentee voters, and that was also kind of peak COVID, if you recall. So a lot of people weren't coming in because they didn't feel safe coming in person. And so state law has changed the last few years that we can process absentees centrally. So what we'll do in November is we'll have a separate tabulator that will be running Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The staff here, the full-time staff, will have overtime hours. I'm salary, I'll just work. And we'll actually be able to process those on a separate machine so that the workers at the wards on Tuesday aren't trying to filter through absentee ballots while they're taking in-person voters. It saves a lot of line backup on election day at the ballot machine. If you voted, I hope you have, those machines can take a few seconds to scan your ballot, and if you've got 30 people in line and a 20-minute lunch break, that line can get backed up pretty fast. And then when you've got a worker that has to come feed, 200, 300, 400 ballots through it from absentee voting, it can get pretty hard to do that. So we do try to central process. There was a 74% voter turnout in 2020. The Secretary of State has issued a notice. There's an email, I think, also in your handout I just
saw
gave
that
you.
email.
They are estimating a 100%. What they're going to do is when they supply state ballots, they are going to estimate 100% of voters. So if I have 7,000 voters, they're going to send us 7,000 ballots. Usually, March, they sent us 15% of our ballots. So it's a significant turnout. We also have our local election, so I'm anticipating 100% ballot need. As the state or federal elections draw a crowd, the local election, people are coming, they're going to vote whatever ballot they're eligible to get. So there's costs to printing and rental that have increased those lines. And so if you kind of pop to the narrative on printing and advertising, right now, we have 7,100 voters enrolled in Ellsworth. We had 6,500 in the 2020 election. And since then, we've had about 400 voters drop off our rolls that moved to other towns, moved out of state, and then we've also added about another 600 to 800 voters on top of the ones we lost, and so we're at 71 now. We are seeing significant increases with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles doing voter enrollment now. We're getting a lot more voter enrollment than I think we have in the past, when you had to come to your clerk's office and fill out a paper application, and doing it at motor vehicle has increased number of enrollees. This election, also, if you have children or know people, 17-year-olds now, that will be 18 in November, can vote, but they can enroll as a 17-year-old so that they're ready to go for Presidential Day. And so there's a lot of voter drives at the high school, generating a significant amount of enrollments. And so I do think that number will increase. And if my voter rolls become 8,000, I'm just gonna have to supply ballots for that, but I'm basing the budget on what I have today. And rental fees. We rent Main Coast Baptist Church, and we rent Your Place Community Center for the use of voting on Election Day. They charge a very nominal fee, and they are without their space for 3 days. So they're fantastic to work with. They move all of their meetings. Your Place has a lot of meetings for the community that they move either downstairs or cancel while we're having an election cycle. They've just been fantastic. And so it's a very nominal fee. We need the space. We're required to have the space. And then we also, the state provides the tabulators for state machines. If you see on a local election, we have 2 machines at each ward. One's a local machine, one's a state ballot. So we have to provide the local machines, so I have to pay for those. The lease for those machines is up this year, and the state does negotiate those lease agreements through the state's lease, and then the state passes those rental costs down to the local municipalities. I don't know what that difference is. I'm kind of just throwing caution to the wind with a number that I think is within the ballpark of what it might be. Our rental in the past, I think we were budgeting about 8,000, so I've increased it a little bit, not knowing what that lease is gonna look like for the next, it's usually a 5-year lease. There's also been talk of the state providing discounts for local machine rentals, and the state having some potential grant money or other money to help fund local machines, but there's no firm agreement on that, so I can't risk not having the funding for a local machine.
Do you think you'll have more concrete numbers before this budget?
I'm hoping.
Okay. I just didn't know
If I
you could
do,
give an
I'll certainly
estimate.
make any updates. Any questions on election? There's no revenue in an election budget. I did include, just for your reference, special election costs on the sheet that looks like this. I get this question a lot in the clerk's office and from citizens. This is just based on the last recount that we did, was $6,800 to run a recount election. So I budget known elections. So if we were to ever have a special for a charter amendment or any other, if there was a vacancy on the council, we ran a special election, those are costs I do not have accounted for. And I think in the future, the city would be wise to look at having a fund for special election costs, because the city has been known to have special elections from time to time. And it would be wise to have a little bit of a bank set aside, even if that means we budget $1,000 a year for 5 years to have a little cushion in the event that we need a special election.
Did you say recounts also? A recount costs that much? Not just a special, because a special election is also like.
Recount costs more, in my opinion, only because we're not using the machines, we're hand counting.
Yeah. So
if we're hand counting 4,000 ballots, I could run those through a machine in 3 or 4 hours. But if we're hand counting, that's, what do we have, 20 people, I think, at the last recount? and that's time. And a large part of that cost is because of the recount turnaround, which is like a week to 10 days usually. I can't get my part-time workers that work for peanuts and food. I have to hire staff. We'll close down offices, which means I'm paying staff like Matt or Tina at their staff rate and not at minimum wage rates. So yeah, it just depends on, if it's a planned special election 3 months out, yes, I can reduce that with having lower paid workers. But if it's someone that I have to use a staff member for, that significantly increases.
But in theory, citizens can be charged? for
Yeah,
that?
if it's a citizen request for a special election for a recount, if someone runs for city council or school board and contests that vote, we can assess them a fee. I try to assess the best of my ability and make them pay the full amount of the recount. Sometimes they will fight that. The last recount, there was a negotiated price paid that did not cover the full cost, and it was just slightly less than half of the cost was covered, which meant the citizens of Ellsworth had to kind of eat the rest of that special election recount because it had to take place.
And there's limits on that, like the percentage?
Correct, yeah. If someone were to lose a race based on percentages, if it's under like 0.1%, it's a free recount, no ability to charge fees. If someone lost by 10% of the votes, they can do a recount, but they have to pay. I had made a deposit schedule, a deposit was paid, and then after the recount, the balance was negotiated and almost waived completely on the last recount.
And that was just a decision by the city manager, or what, how did we make that?
City manager and
decision?
I had a meeting with the recount requester, and it was very clear that we were not going to get the balance, and so it was in our best interest to take what we could get than to take nothing.
That's not to dwell.
Well, best to prepare for the future.
And for the reference, I've now kind of created an internal clerk policy that when there's a recount requested, instead of requesting a 50% deposit, it's an 80% deposit. So hopefully that will mitigate the need for negotiated fees later after the fact, when the work is performed.
Better win, better work, City better win, better work, better.
Any more questions?
If we do want to start padding out a special election rainy day fund, what account would that go into?
I'd have to talk to Ann and probably make a new account. That's kind of a non-touchable account without manager approval. I wouldn't recommend it this year. I think the city budget is not able to sustain it this year. I just think it's something you all should be aware of and plan for, because certainly, as with the recount, if we had such a fund, we could have not overspent those accounts in 2021, or 2022.
Could I ask a question about this recount business? If someone requests a recount, what is the harm in making them prepay 100%?
Janet just said that, so I can.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say that.
She whispered to me.
Wisdom everywhere.
I can. When I had talked that through with the city manager this past fall, we just felt like at the time, because a recount may change the outcome of an election if it's a very close election, that it was fair to stick with 80%, but I will certainly consider 100% if that is.
I'm asking that question.
We can charge
What
100%.
happens if it's, and crazy question here, but if a recount turns an election,
We may have to refund money if it does change the vote.
okay, so that becomes the city's,
There's liability to the
Bill.
city if
Right.
there is a change in outcome, which I think is partially why we talked about not charging 100% at that time. Not that refunding money through AP is incredibly difficult, it's just an additional step. And until recently, we hadn't had issue collecting balances owed.
And if it turns an election, is it a 100%?
It depends on how much the percent of change.
So there's drama to it regardless.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, if it's close enough that it's likely to change anything, it's free anyway.
It's free anyway, yeah, if it's close enough.
Oh, okay.
So, it's more of just an
But
internal
again,
rule of thumb. We can
Free to
revise-
somebody, but costly to us,
Correct.
Correct.
right?
Yeah, but if it's that close, there's nothing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Cost of democracy.
It's a bargain.
Any more questions? No? All right, thanks, Tony, unless supplied the joint office, but that's not next, it's,
That's not next?
yeah. I'll-
It's next?
No, it's not next, yeah. All right, I guess I could talk for a little bit, going over the legal services budget. Many of these items are staying, either stable or getting decreased, so personnel, is being increased.
Could I interrupt you and find out where you are?
Yep.
It's still in
so-
section 4,
Yep, so,
It's just the next.
right after elections.
hold on. Back up, Steve.
You're getting ahead of yourself, Steve.
There's elections.
And I've got administration.
And then there should be a legal
That's right.
services on the first.
Okay, I'm with you, sorry.
Mine is not in that order.
Oh, are they in different order now?
Yeah, talk slower so I can.
I was looking over your shoulder.
That's good.
So it should be right after election.
I have it, but I don't have that cover sheet like Steve.
I might pick you up on that.
Administration twice.
No. It'll
What do
be,
you want for a number?
Me?
Oh, see,
Yeah, that adds up.
So this replaces the election stuff that's in here?
yes.
The services got it. Thank you.
All right. Everyone found it?
Sorry.
No?
That's all right, I'll look on this, Steve.
So personnel is decreasing by $2,000, just because of a lack of, additional use, perceived use for the future.
What does that mean, personnel for legal services?
Tony, do you want to speak to that?
Is it lawyers?
Well, it's all
for any
lawyers.
personnel issues that are going on.
Oh,
in
so
the
this is
city.
the genre,
This is,
okay,
yeah,
the
it's
subject
always subject-
matter.
yes.
It's the
of
subject matter, not the
okay.
Gotcha, yeah.
personnel themselves.
Not the-
Okay.
And I
And-
do believe at times labor negotiations have rolled more than what we budgeted, and we had personnel fund.
I think they just overdrew that one. So, but, I mean, it could have changed.
And then planning and code has increased by $1,000. Code has been taking on more infractions, and with taking those to our lawyers for, settlement agreements or, I'm blanking, Lori, on what,
Violation.
well, no,
Consent
consent
agreements.
agreements. Patrick, you would know. And administrative is decreasing by about $5,000, again, just from it's general purpose legal fees, but just from not enough use for this fiscal year. Labor negotiations is being increased significantly. We have a number of negotiations going on now, but we also have a very large negotiation with police department next year, or next fiscal year. And so the costs for labor negotiations will likely go up, as it's usually a difficult negotiation. Then bonds and legal fees is increasing to $20,000. And I say you speak to that?
It's just been unfunded for a couple of years, and we've been doing bonds, so we have bond fees.
Was there any indication on where it was being drawn from, or other than
It
its
was
own line
just
item?
overdrawn.
Yeah.
Well, there were two funds. There was a financial, where some of them were getting coded to, and then there was bond legal fees.
So it was
not budgeted.
Yes.
Correct.
Was there a reason it wasn't budgeted for?
I don't know.
And then for ordinances, that's staying stable. That's just if we ever need special review for ordinances. I mean, if I have an ordinance in the planning department, I use my own legal budget for that. But I guess if council had a ordinance that they were pushing that needed review, it'd be pulled from this fund. And financial, and again, you can speak to that piece.
That's the same that was basically legal fees of bond counsel that were billed to that.
So
That was the only account that was funded for that use.
But now that we have bond legal fees, is there a differentiation between bond legal fees and financial?
No, there was just both of those accounts that existed in the chart of accounts, and both of them had transactions. So I included them. Soon we will not have both of those accounts, but that's, again, just a work in progress to eliminate some of these things.
And then we have easements, which, again, if there's any type of easement dispute or need easement research, we would use this fund to pull from that. And then title and other legal, again, clearing title on a piece of property, we would use this account for that.
Is there any income account associated if there are like fines collected or?
Not under legal services, but you'll find like fines through code is recorded with their department, revenue, right. Any questions on legal services?
I guess I have one question, which is, so all these different, all the money in these different sections, it's all paying lawyers? It's just split up what you're paying them for?
Yes.
Yeah.
John, you look like you're thinking.
No,
No, okay.
just napping.
We were all here late last night.
So,
Yeah.
is this the same information, two different formats? It appears to be.
Yes, so it
It's
depends,
different.
right.
The amounts are different though.
This
I
is
had,
for the
I had
over-
compiled the second sheet.
You have what? I couldn't hear.
The second spreadsheet in there is what I had compiled based on previous year budgets.
I just mean for legal. It looks like I
It
have one
is.
format this way, one format this way.
Correct, so this is probably more up to date with changes, but this is what was submitted originally.
312, okay, thank you, thanks for the difference, all right. So
I also
Whether it's the
set that up for you guys
You can,
on
yeah.
Excel with the date on the bottom, so you'd know, you'd be able to take notes right on there, and you'd know what day you took those notes. So,
Excellent.
before we do the final.
Alright, next is joint office. This covers shared expenses between different departments. Tony had prepared this budget as well.
So you should have in the handout I gave you earlier, like this one little one pager, the last thing in your thing. It's just a narrative that goes behind your
So in the back of the
spreadsheets.
clerk.
This one,
Yes, sir.
and that one goes behind joint
Last
office.
page.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Look at that, I can follow along.
that's March 19th. and
That was the
then
goal.
throw Away March 12th.
So the clerk's department acts as the purchasing agent for general office supplies. So we compile this budget. The first account there is for telephone. That is for cell phone reimbursements for required personnel. Required personnel usually are approved through the IT department and city manager as needed, based on job, if you're required to have a phone after hours, et cetera, or those that are issued city cell phones because of their job. So far, when I did actual expenses on the budgets I've created, I ran them through 12/31. That way it was a true 6-month number. So looking at the actuals, I think 15,000 is still appropriate for that line. The next line is printing and advertising. This is just general advertising and printing for various needs. This could be things that we stuff in the tax bills that don't get budgeted out of the tax collector's budget. It could be additional notices that we choose to have that aren't related to a particular department. I know Matt budgets the comprehensive plan type of things through his budget. These are just sort of general announcements or printings that we may have to do outside of our regular work. Tammy may remember some of the things in the past.
Tony, can I, what is joint office mean?
General supplies, it's for the whole city.
The whole city.
So there's a closet in my department, police department comes in, they need pens, they take a box of pens.
Okay.
Like paper is pretty
Paper,
common,
pens,
There's like
some
two
sheet protectors, just
yeah.
very basic office supplies, staples, paper clips. This is your paper clip one.
One station on each floor, so like assessing has,
Do we get paper clips?
the second floor is joint office like supplies, and then clerk has the first floor's joint office supplies.
Excellent. Good to know.
So printing and advertising, I think we're on target there. I don't know that there's any planned advertising outside of our normal, so I don't think there's an increase to be had there. Under joint office, we have an office supply line. This is your paper clips, pens, sheet protectors, folders, envelopes. Our envelopes come out of this account. Again, I think we're kind of at that 50% spent, so I think to keep it at 5,000, or 5,500, I'm sorry, is appropriate for that line. Postage and shipping is the largest expense. I am proposing leaving it at 27,000. In my department meeting with Matt, he asked how much of that is shipping, and it's $0 is shipping. It is all related to just flat out USPS mail. That, we have a postage meter here, we add funds to that. Obviously, we do a lot of mailings through that.
Did we do more this year? Have we
It's a
done-
little higher, yeah, it's a little higher than it has been in the past. But I think overall, I think Sue's the largest user of that in the tax office, and I don't think she has any big things coming. So I don't think we're gonna go over it. They're done though, right, or no?
No,
And there's still money on the machine, like, there's money on the machine.
it's just gonna, this number's gonna be high, so.
So yeah, it's just general postage.
How many shippings, how many mailings is that, or how much? Not-
That's a
like
Sue question,
round,
cause that's who mails everything.
How many
I guess,
pieces?
would these be done in, say, a round of we're gonna mail all of the households in the city this week and spend postage on it? Or is it throughout the year?
It's
everybody's
throughout the
getting-
year.
It's throughout the year because you have the tax bills which
Yep.
go out, which actually, we don't send them out, we outsource the bill itself, the tax bill. But I do the liens, which can be as many as 500 of them at a time. And then I've been trying to do reminders. Not quite as successful with those just yet, but we have sent some reminders out for personal property that is owed to us. And that, I think I mailed out like 250 of those. But then you have.
Water, sewer bills.
Right, and you
The her
have
liens.
demand notices and 30-day notices and impending foreclosure. There's a lot.
And they have to go certified, which
And they have to
is
go
what,
certified.
$6 or $7?
And it's
$6.85.
like
So that
almost
can add up.
$9
Is it $9 now?
It's almost 9, yeah.
Oh, it's almost 9?
It's almost 9.
Okay.
And then also in there, you know, when finance sends AP checks out, like this is the general postage, so if there's a piece of mail leaving this building, it's that account, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, you're saying, so like, if we mail out surveys from the comprehensive plan, it comes from here.
No, I was about to say
Unless
that
those
would be
departments have budgeted
different.
special for their own
Yeah,
mailings.
so like, you know, what Sue's processes are part of her regular, you know, active business for the city, so that's included in this. But if there's a special project, or like, I do an ordinance update, I have my own separate budget for special items like that that come up, that's outside of the joint office.
And then you might remember in your council budget, you added a little extra money last year for some stuff. So if you, the council communications committee wanted to do a particular mail, you had a little funds there. So there could be some departments that have a little fund for a particular project, but the general mail comes out of that account.
I guess, again, for like planning, the butter notices for planning board projects come out of this account. I don't budget for them in my account because it's part of normal business for the city.
Okay, and then miscellaneous supplies. We have contracts for our water cooler system, coffee vending machines, and then just other miscellaneous needs that come up that don't fit in any other line. So I've left that the same. I think there's no need to increase it, looking at the past. We did increase it last year, just in the event that we had looked at changing vendors for the vending machines that we have here. Tina looked into that, and so we had estimated a little increase to change the vendor due to not great service. I think the increase should hold, just in the event that there is an over, something we couldn't budget for. It's nice to have a miscellaneous option to kind of look and determine if it fits there or not. So that's my proposal. We have miscellaneous expense, which is general expenses. This could be, I know I dipped into this a little bit this year to get some of those sheet protectors for my vault revamped, because I needed to finish a few books that were already half started, and I had overexpended my budget, and so bought a couple cases of sheet protectors out of that line, and the leftovers got put in the general closet for other people to dip into, so just miscellaneous. And then there's office equipment. This is anything that Jason doesn't provide, so a calculator, stapler, hole puncher, those minor tools that you might have on your desk. There's no increase to this department this year.
Any questions for joint office? All right. Next is insurance. Well, Carrie, would you rather talk about insurance at all, or?
Talking health insurance or property and casualty?
Property casualty.
Building and property, vehicle insurance.
I wasn't
Yeah.
prepared to.
No, that's okay, yeah.
Okay.
So the next spreadsheet should be your insurance one. Just want to make sure it's still, Tammy, is your binder kind of making more sense now?
Yeah, I was just missing a few
Okay.
pages, so.
So there is an increase to property insurance this year, which is just simply based off the bill. Carrie had worked on like an audit with them over the last year, which yielded some increases to our coverages. We've added some vehicles, we have taken some vehicles offline. Building and property increased. Building and property, that covers even tax-acquired property that we have to insure. So as we acquire those, we have to cover them in case someone gets hurt on those premises. So we did increase it a little bit based on the bill that they sent. Road treatment, they did not increase. They did not increase the volunteer fire department insurance, which is for the per diem firefighters or those that are on a volunteer status. If they get hurt on a call, this is how we cover them. Police liability decreased a little bit based on the bill they sent. And actually, we've paid that bill in full for FY '24, and you can see we budgeted $12,000, and it actually came in at 96. So there's going to be some funds there rolled into the general fund at the end of the year. General comp liability is simply that. If you know insurance, it's general insurance. That actually covers a lot of things. It has harbor insurance in there for things at the harbor. It's got stuff for the DeMeyer Field and recreation departments through Knowlton Park and kind of all the other city properties that we don't think about. If a child gets hurt on the slide, this is the account that would cover that injury, which I know was a passion of Patrick's.
So we're fully insured.
So the slide is
I saw you
insured.
bought
It
it.
may be broken, but it's insured.
I think we bought a new one, didn't we? Is that what installed it?
There's a whole thing.
There's the whole thing.
There's a whole
Don't get me started, Beth.
Should we talk about that tonight?
I talked about it this morning. I'll fill you in later.
You better.
Public official liability, that decreased based on the bill, and also you'll see for the actual this year, that was less than we anticipated last fiscal year, or this current fiscal year. That covers not just the city staff that are sworn officials, but it actually covers you all. If you drive to a training or you're driving to council meeting and you get in a car accident, you are actually covered on our insurance. Ta-da!
Fucking speeds.
Don't do that.
So truly, if you do have an issue while you're on city business, please make sure that the city is informed of that.
Sorry.
Yes.
Good. I can wait till you're done going through this.
Okay, and then ambulance medical malpractice was reduced from what we've been budgeting in the past. Not that we do anything incorrect, but now that we have a licensed transport, as that business generates, you may find that that will go up as we do more transports. But for right now, they're leaving it at 500.
That's what I was wondering. I would expect it to go up for that reason.
At the time they did their assessment of all the city property, we hadn't obtained that licensure, so because we weren't transporting, and with the transport, they may want to do like a sub-audit, that may fall under Carrie or somebody else, but they may look at changing that through the year if we have any issues. Questions?
So for this insurance, is it all provided by one provider?
Maine Municipal provides
It's
all of our
Maine
property.
Municipal. Do we, and is it kind of like, here it is, you don't get a choice with them?
Yeah, I mean, they send us, I don't know, it's probably a 60-page form every year for renewal, and it breaks out literally almost every pen and every desk and every piece of property that we have to insure. So it's pretty thorough. Those get dispersed to departments. You know, Adam will get a list, and Mike and Reggie get a list. Are these what's within your, are these your vehicles? Are these your buildings that you own, pump stations? And then they come out, they send someone, they assess each location. They don't look at every vehicle, but they assess locations annually to determine if the need to insure changes. I mean, just like your homeowner's insurance, if you
Yeah.
add an addition, you're gonna have a higher premium. So they do a pretty thorough renewal process. So it's, I mean, it's, I take it to the bank if that's
Yeah.
helpful.
No, that is helpful. So, we're looking at a almost 40% increase. Am I correct in assuming that all municipalities that get their insurance through MMA are looking at a similar percentage increase?
There was overall increases through Maine Municipal's insurance programs, both in the benefit end and on the property end. Obviously, anyone's cost is gonna be based on their insured property. So if you have a city the size of Ellsworth but only owns 2 physical locations, like a city hall and a library, they're gonna pay less because they don't have all the stuff. We have a lot of stuff. We have a harbor, we have a lot of recreation parks and fields, and we just have a lot.
Yeah, so that makes sense. But so, basically, if there was another municipality in Maine that had very similar.
This is what they're gonna pay.
This is what they're gonna pay. And all municipalities in Maine more or less go through MMA?
A substantial amount. There are some private insurers that will work with municipalities. I know, I shouldn't say that, I'm pretty sure Bangor uses a different insurance company.
I would imagine MMA is, going out to numerous, doing bids and, basically negotiating on behalf of all of their municipal clients.
And
Yeah. Their board of trustees meets annually and reviews those bids and determines what's right for the members of the trust. And because it's a trust, the rates are somewhat dependent on that based on usage. So as usage decreases, both on the employee benefit and on property casualty, they can reduce rates at times if the usage is great.
I know at one time, the city did look at trying to go with a private, another insurance company to see if we could reduce the rates, and it ended up being higher.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised,
yeah.
right? You know, MMA's got a lot of negotiating
Mhm.
authority compared to just one town.
Right, and so, and the FY '24 year-to-date column, have we paid in full this year?
Yes. When I pull these numbers, the last bill that was paid was the June 30 installment, or paid through June 30. We've made 2 payments this year, and usually they break it out into 2 installments.
And that building and property insurance is going up that much based on the audit?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we added vehicles this year, during the year.
We added vehicles, and there were, I think, a couple additions to buildings with the tax acquired. I think we had a couple additions. There were some smaller additions.
How often is the city making claims or declaring property casualty or tapping into?
Daily.
Okay.
I mean, on average. Carrie's done it for a little over a year. I've helped out with it. When I started assisting Carrie with it, I think I did 6 claims in the first week that I took it over. So that was also in, what, Carrie, February or something, so there was some snowplow.
It's not all the time, like every
No,
single
it's not every
day.
day. But
Gosh, we need some safety
there's
training.
there's probably 2 to 5 on average a month, I would guess, just based on an average. Some months you're gonna have more. In the winter, I think we tend to see more vehicle accidents. Travel obviously is difficult, but not a lot on property insurance unless there's significant natural storm or disaster of some kind that destroys property. I think most of our claims are on vehicles, and we had 1 police liability claim in 2021. I don't think there's been one since, which is, I think, why they were able to reduce that, just good history on that.
You mentioned at one point the city looked at alternative options. How many years ago was that?
Oh, gosh, it was probably 8, 9.
Is it worth, maybe not for this budget, but another year? Is it worth revisiting that?
I think Matt can certainly have that discussion with Charlie to see if that's something he wants to entertain for the upcoming fiscal year for FY '26.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it
it's
would
too
be a
crowded
good
for
idea,
this year,
yeah.
for sure, but I just have to ask that question. That would be pushing 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you-
I have a question on math, Steve. I got my calculator out. I was looking at the percentage increase, and it looked like it's the percentage increase from
The FY '24.
column F to column I, but shouldn't it be column H to column I, which is a lower percentage?
The percentage on the sheets that I've provided should be based on the FY '24 budget in comparison to the FY '25
And
request.
that's what they
That's what
are,
this
so we
is.
compare what we budgeted for last year and what we're planning
But
to
shouldn't
budget.
we compare to actual, since you just said that column H is it's year-to-date, but it's also the actual. And so if we've got actual, we ought to compare to that. So like, row 439, it goes from $46,000 actual to $50,000, that's only a 10% increase. If we're looking at, by going by the actual instead of the budgeted.
It artificially deflates the number because the actual is not based on the same set of standards that the budget was originally factored off of. It's
But,
things
and
that
I-
have happened.
I understand, but I think that column H is a more accurate number because it's the reality, not what you budgeted over a year ago.
But it's the
So-
statistic that you're looking at, so a
But-
statistic has to be the
But the
same.
statistic should be, no, well, I would reflect, and when I do our budgeting for our organization, I look at year-to-date to get a sense of how did we do in budgeting. But if we know that the actual is fairly different from what we budgeted, that's a better, more recent number
That's why I put it in there, but.
to compare to. So it really isn't, when you compare what we're budgeting to what we actually spent, it's not a 39% increase, it's actually closer, it's a,
But we're looking at annual budgets, we're looking at an annual comparison
I
of-
understand.
That's why I put the year-to-date in there.
But we have more recent information than what we budgeted a year ago. So I get the need for like apples and apples, but if we have apples and here's a, I don't
Apple
even,
pie.
I can't go with the fruit analogy. But when you're looking at what you're budgeting based on what we actually pay, it isn't that significant an increase, which is, I think, good news. It just means that it was higher than budgeted, which is life.
I mean, there's a rule about how you do a comparison. That's why I put them both there. So you
Well-
can see what we actually spend versus what do we, I mean, the whole point of even having statistic is to inspect your expectation. So
Yeah.
our expectation was this number,
Totally
then life
get it.
happens, things get added, but there's,
Totally understand how the
that's why I put the
year-to-date-
number there in the first place.
So what
you
I'm
can see it.
hearing is stress from the council about, oh my God, it's a 39% increase. Well, budget to budget, but the actual is actually, the budgeting is on the mark, I think, because it's just a little bit higher.
That's
So-
why they're both there.
So a
So-
solution to this would be to just have a change in FY '24 to FY '25 budgeted and then a separate column for change in FY
Just,
'24.
or even just to reflect as we're looking at it, it's a 39% increase from what was budgeted a year ago. But it's a closer, it's less significant increase from the actual. So that what we're budgeting this year is closer to the actual, which is.
But the budget is an annual thing, and it's what's used to assess taxes. So you're in keeping with this narrative of year to year.
Right. But you're-
That's why, but you provide that as data for however you want to
And
use it.
So, and I'm not suggesting we change the process. I'm saying while we're having conversations about, oh God, look at how much higher it is, it's not significantly higher.
So you're
than
wanting
the
to see
I
a
don't,
percentage based on
I'm
actuals
not
and
asking you to
current?
change your process. I'm reflecting on two
Right.
different numbers as the commission, as whoever we are, the council, is struggling with the 39.6% increase is, when you compare it to the actual for this year, it's
I mean,
not.
I'm happy to break that out on my
significant.
spreadsheet just so you can see both figures. It's an easy formulation.
They're
If it
right.
helps you in your process, I think it's great
I-
for you.
I'm not gonna ask more work of all of you.
It's a
I'm
really, it's a
just
really easy change, and I'm
I
happy to add it
think
to
we
my.
won't change anything. I think it's just a
Making the
way
observation
to, a lens to
that-
view the
right.
budget through. Steve?
Just to ask a question in relation to your comments. This actual could change from now till June 30th.
Right.
Yes.
Well, except that
Yeah.
you said that this was it for the year, which is
But
why I.
you
The
know,
second
if
bill
we
has
add-
come in and been paid. I mean, they could,
If we add anything to the policy, we'll have to pay additional
So-
premiums.
So,
Yeah, so, and I think if the audit usually will give us an adjustment for, before the end of the year as well, so that number's gonna probably change. too.
So I based what I said on your saying, yes, this is it for the year. So, again, just reflecting the increase budget to budget, yes, but year-to-date is actually closer. It's not,
So huge.
right, what we're budgeting is closer to the reality for this year.
Last year, when we made the decision about the police vehicle leases, can you remind me, I thought there was some insurance through the whole lease people thing.
insurance through the lease.
Or no, does it, the
No.
insurance
No.
on the police
We are
vehicles?
still
There was
required,
maintenance through the
Oh.
lease,
Okay, that's what
covered
I was thinking.
but not
maintenance
insurance.
costs, but we have to insure those.
Okay.
Does this cover the police's insurance too?
Yes, that's the police liability, the halfway down to that list.
Public
Um,
official, police line, okay.
Yep, so if there was,
Police covers police, okay.
if there was, a claim that there
Catching
was
on.
an
Let me know if
improper
I need to explain
action,
anything.
this is
It's my
how
first year.
they're covered.
I couldn't remember that, but that's what it was. It was that they
Yeah,
had
it
this
was the
maintenance
maintenance.
part that was included. Okay.
any more questions on insurance? All right. Employee benefits. Again, would you like me to walk through this one, Carrie?
Well, I mean, I can come up, but I would.
Or they might have questions that you might be able to answer. Well,
Gave me
that's good. So yeah, first line is social security, and it's taxes paid out, on behalf of the employees. Then there's workers' comp.
No,
So I forgot my headers on
I
there.
was gonna say, same headers as the other
Same
one.
headers, sorry.
And then, right, so workers' comp, any payments paid out for injuries at work. Unemployment insurance was pretty, sorry, I'm actually gonna need to see what my headers are now. But
Can I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just to get my bearings, trying to compare the headers, so there's no fiscal year 2024 year-to-date on the employee benefits?
No.
Just so I know I've got
Yeah.
what we're doing, okay? So it's 23.
There's a lot of that info is contained in the payroll files that are in the process of getting bridged over. I pulled out manually the year-to-dates on wages because that was an easy number to calculate. But to calculate benefits and go through all the union agreements was
Yeah.
like,
No, just
crazy.
looking for, just being clear on what I'm looking at. So that it's fiscal year 23 budget?
Yeah.
And 24 budget, not
Yes.
actuals for either?
we have no actuals on this page.
Okay. Thank you.
then there's the health insurance, with an increase, I believe, due to the offering of a new plan.
Yowzer.
That would increase, potentially increase costs, so it's, I think the employee will pay more themselves, but then it also covers a lot more, and that there's no out-of-pocket costs for actual medical expenses.
Matt,
Yeah.
I'm happy to step in on
Yes,
this.
thank you.
Yeah. So, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I apologize, but currently, the city offers one health insurance plan to the employees. The information that you have is a proposal to offer two plans. So employees would have a choice. The increase, so the second plan that we would like to offer is more expensive, but the proposal is for that increase in expense to fall on the employee. So if they want the better plan with the lower deductible, they could choose to pay more out of their wages each week to get the better plan. If they want to stick with the current plan they have, that's fine too. So the employee would have a choice. Some of this is a retention tool, some of it would be a recruitment tool as well, just because we have only offered one plan in the past. Current employees that have worked here when they offered the previous plan have expressed interest in going back to that plan. So current plan that we have now was, I think it was fiscal year 20 that we switched to it. So I think it was FY 20. And so the previous plan, like I said, was more expensive because it's a more comprehensive insurance coverage. But that's why those numbers are the way they are. So the insurance as it stands, the current plan that we have now was a 5.5% increase this year. It was a 5% increase last year. So we have budgeted for a 9% increase just to be safe for that. And then, of course, the numbers to offer that second plan, if we can.
Did I understand you correctly that what we're seeing here is what's the full-in cost paid by both employer and employee?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next is ICMA contributions. The cafeteria plan, which is part of our benefit plan. There are smaller items like gym memberships or fitness stipend, I should call it, that aren't, that are paid directly by the city, that aren't provided by a third party. And so that's what that budget line item's for cafeteria plan. There's RHS city match, and then for main state retirement, the city share for that. And then group dynamics, which is our HRA for health costs. So you have a question?
When you're ready. I don't know what HRA is and I don't know what ICMA is.
All right, so HRA, so that's really the health reimbursement.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if there's something that isn't covered by the insurance, a cost, I think every employee has $3,000, gets reimbursed to them. And then ICMA, I do believe that's the other retirement match.
Yeah, International City Managers Association retirement.
Okay, thank you.
I actually don't know what the cafeteria plan means.
So part of our employee benefit package is we get points to allocate to different things. And so one of the biggest cost of that is applying points to health insurance. But then there's some other, or retirement also, but there's other items that are smaller that aren't provided by like a third party, the city just pays for it directly. So that's something like, there's a fitness stipend where you can have like a certain amount of money go towards a gym membership a month, or additional like medical reimbursement that's not covered by insurance, like a contact lenses or something like that. There's a certain stipend you can get for that. So there's smaller items that are just covered by the city directly. Yeah.
Obviously, the main state retirement is over 100% increase.
Okay.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
I'm happy to come up. I haven't seen this budget, so I'm not quite sure what you're looking at.
So we're looking at the main state retirement budget.
No, you said it was 100% increase?
$200,000 in.
Yeah, 114%, so when, yeah.
That would help a lot. Thank you so much. So, yep, there was a plan change in last September. We went from part of the police contract, they got it switched. So we were on the 4C plan with Maine PERS. The police contract got approved, which switched them to the 2C plan. And then because of that, the fire department got a side letter, which also switched them over to the 2C plan. The 2C plan is significantly higher in cost. The state sets these rates, so we have no control over that. The state sets the rates every July 1st for what the city pays and what the employee pays. So sometimes it does decrease a little bit, sometimes it increases, but really we just have to follow with the percentages that they determine. But that's the increases because of that plan switch.
Do you know what 2C percentage rate is?
Currently, it's 11.2 for the employer. I could be wrong. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared with this, so.
And then what about the 4C? Do you know that?
It was 8 last time we had it, I think, 8.3, that's not right?
4C, yeah, I can't remember, I'm so
Okay,
sorry,
that's-
I don't
that's
have
fine.
that stuff with me.
Something I'm pretty certain.
Yeah,
So it was changed through contract negotiations?
correct, yeah.
And, so, I understand on the last one, it said police, so that makes sense. But under this, for admin, employee benefits, just for the whole city, all city employees, or just for?
Would be included in the main state retirement, yes.
So the
That-
entirety of all of 100 or whatever
Mm-hmm.
employees that, or anyone that qualifies for the retirement, or?
If they've selected that as the retirement option. So not all employees have, but some of them go with ICMA instead.
But that would encompass all of the main state retirement. Not all employees are on the 2C plan,
Okay.
but that number does encompass the entire, for everyone that's enrolled in it, which isn't all employees. It's-
Okay, so is there any, when we go to other departments' budgets, are we gonna see any retirement stuff like this? So this is for the entire city, anyone that gets retirement benefit is in this.
Correct, yep.
Except water, wastewater.
Except wastewater.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. I'm
It's,
so
well,
sorry.
that's the way it, I mean, water and wastewater.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Unless you.
I'm looking at my spreadsheet, and I think one of the problems that I had with the data migration was it flipped the column E and F, so I think probably they should be switched. I thought I caught all of them, but it looks, I would
So
say.
E
I
is
didn't.
24, F
Okay, so
is
yeah.
23,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
a
Yeah.
lot more sense now.
Yeah. So,
I thought I caught them all, but I got this one kinda late.
so it's not quite 100% increase. So that percentage increase is based off 23, not 24 for this one?
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately. Sorry about that.
But it's still a
Yeah,
significant increase.
175.
Yeah, so it's almost 100%.
Is there a way to break, sorry, did you have a?
I have a question, but I think I can remember it long enough. You can go.
Is there a way to break down how
I
much
can
of
write
this
it down.
total increase is a result of the benefits cost increase versus the number of employees added in the last year, or?
As far as how much of this is in regards to the 2C switch?
Or just the total, because if we add more employees to FY '25 to the payroll, it's gonna increase this number,
I see, okay.
obviously, but the rates might not have gone up that much. Is there a way to see, you know? If
I would
the,
have to guess we don't hire enough employees to like make as big of an increase as the plan change, but we can look into providing that.
Sure.
Two questions I wrote down, so I remember them.
I'm writing mine.
One is actually a request. With the swap and the percentages are different, can we just get an updated?
Yes,
With the right
absolutely.
information. Second thing is, what I heard, if I heard it correctly, is the two largest items here, health insurance and Maine State Retirement, both are the combined of the employer and employee contributions. Is that correct? So when this is out in the public and people are digesting, I think it would be really helpful to be able to somehow highlight, this is not just what the city's paying, but it's the employee contribution as well. I think that will help people.
To exactly address that, once the payroll bridge is finished, those will be broken out by account. I can't
And-
see it right now
and
the
I-
way it is. But yeah, so when we do the final budget, those will be broken out because it's sticker shock scary.
Right, and I want to avoid that, because
Yeah,
once
I
people
agree.
see sticker shock, it's hard to like, oh, go, never mind.
Unsee it.
How, right, once you see that, you can't unsee it. Is that gonna happen while these conversations are happening and people are looking and?
Yes, it should happen by the time, I'd say probably after the school workshop, but by the time you get to the next city, which I think is fire,
Okay,
you'll have an update to that one. And you'll have some other updates too.
okay, it'd be
Certainly the
really, I think
payroll,
really helpful for, I mean,
taxes.
we'll hear it here, but people who see
Yeah.
this, be really helpful to have that out there.
Absolutely.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Can we get a list of like the positions? It doesn't need to be the employee's name, but what their coverage is, what that cost is for insurance, what type of insurance that they get based on their base salary, what their contribution is, you know, Social Security. I mean, basically all these line items to, and then kind of so we can tie these numbers. That's
Okay.
we could do something like that.
I think you'll have that when we get the bridge finished. It's just a bear. They've been working, they have 2 accountants working on it now, so. But it should break it all out in the new payroll report. It's
Okay.
just to look at it, you remember how many accounts there are for like police and all the union stuff, so to try and do that manually was just, I couldn't unthink about doing that, so. But it's gonna be done soon. The bridges, they're having a meeting about it tomorrow to finalize it, and then all that data will come into the new software, and it should be simple to fix. And a lot more illustrative of the spend.
I think Carrie has those lists that you're referring to that she uses to do these numbers. It's just a matter of including them in.
Like putting them in columns and seeing like the total.
I think they're already pretty much like that. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
they weren't included in the packet because we haven't put them in there in the past, so.
Okay. Cause yeah, that's a lot.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Gary.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, next is miscellaneous, should be right behind, it doesn't have its own, like Excel spreadsheet, but it's just our MMA dues that we pay every year, and then shellfish dues to support, shellfish harvesters in the Union River. in Ellsworth.
That one's not going up. Good work.
Stable, yeah. And then next is legislative, which has not really been updated because I think last year there was discussion about the council making changes to this, as it's really your budget. So having discussions now about what you'd like to see and what you may need. There could be I have some suggestions based on potential staffing changes where, you know, for printing and advertising, right now it's at 9,700, but some of that was budgeted last year to provide Maura some resources for working with you guys and printing and for advertising materials. But when we get to the manager's budget, we're looking to break her out into a full-time communications position, so we would transfer some of those funds from this budget to the manager's budget to provide her those materials. So that's just a change, area that could decrease. And, you know, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what payroll pays for, or payroll's all your stipends.
Yeah,
right?
it's all that money.
Right.
So we should double
stable.
that.
We should double that.
So when I had spoke to Michelle earlier in the year, and she told me to leave your legislative budget at the same levels as it was last year, so that you all could assess those throughout these workshops.
Yeah.
Which is going to include those changes that Matt talked about with potentially moving staff around with their various supplies and needs, but the way that I did it was just based on Michelle's guidance to leave it the same. So if you choose to have increase to your stipends, this is the time to discuss that, decreases, et cetera. I don't know if that's an option.
Better to look over well.
But that's a vote in the organizational
Yes.
Yeah.
meeting.
Yes.
So this should be stable for FY '25.
And the printing and advertising is for city council meetings? or
City
does that
council
come out of
meetings
your
and
budget?
agendas, and then we had increased it, about $6,000 last year through the city council's communications subcommittee to give more some resources for some like text notification software and surveys that they wanted her to do. We haven't had a chance to do those yet, so there's gonna be, potentially, possibly, likely, some unused funds this year.
So like when you pay the Ellsworth American, because you're posting an agenda, it comes out of this.
Right, so anything for you all, your agendas, workshop notices, that's what comes from here. Public hearings for business licenses has its own account. Matt has his own for planning notices that so it's very departmental specific. These are your notices. If you chose to do like a council, I know we had talked about like a monthly, I think we did it before, the city manager had like a monthly what's going on kind of thing that would come out of manager budget. If the council chose to do, you know, we talked in the communications about like a list of monthly meetings, and those would come out of here also.
So I would suggest, you know, for printing and advertising, we can just go back to
3,000.
manager, because that, I think, increased. Yep, we took $4,500 and increased to that, so splitting a difference here. If, Tony, the 6,300 that's been spent so far year to date isn't all notices, right? That's also extra materials, so, I would say if 3,000 was covered for just notices before, you could return to that, level, but if you would like to keep a little bit of extra room, you know, you'd still be able to work with more, and if there's specific council actions that you'd wanna take through communications, leaving a buffer for that, so maybe dropping it down to around 4,000 or 5,000 instead of the 9,700.
And, not that it's a large expense, but, we didn't have any other place to take it, so when we did the meet and greet for Charlie, the food and beverages, because it was a council sanctioned benefit, those expenses I did, code to do a printing and advertising, because I knew you were not gonna be using that for software that more needed, like originally planned, and it had funds, and it was, a council event, if you would, so.
Seems appropriate.
I thought it was appropriate to come from there, so there's probably $400 in meet and greet stuff that came out of there. Because you all do not have your own miscellaneous expense.
Yeah, there is.
They do, but.
I was gonna say,
it
I would have
already
taken it out of
overspent.
miscellaneous overdrawn. So that was-
Yeah.
You
yeah,
could do
it was-
that too, so,
We could have overdrawn it.
yeah.
Pizza party.
Does any, do you guys have any recommendations?
I'm just trying to think about, I mean, to me, it makes sense to just go back to $3,000
Yeah.
for communicate. I'm just thinking, like, what do we communicate? What do we communicate? If we do, frankly, it's like, hey, can you put that on Facebook and the website?
Yeah, well, boosting, doing like advertised posts
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
social media, but those could be folded into Mara's budget
Yeah.
if they're not specific council themes. Although, going back to like a note from the council or a note from the manager that's monthly or quarterly that goes out, that could be helpful.
I mean, I can look back for some actuals on simply with these for council agendas. I'm sure you're aware, the longer the agenda, the more money it costs. We've had some agendas that are $500 just advertised. So if you want a more actual on just your agendas, I can try to compile
That's probably a good idea.
that figure so that you can determine if 3,000 is going to be adequate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the last two items, I feel like keeping those stable makes sense. Or you could move some money from conferences and meetings to miscellaneous expense, because that's currently overdrawn, but it's still around $500. It doesn't seem like conferences and meetings get spent a ton. It's probably like if a newly elected counselor goes to an MMA training for elected
I
officials.
forget how much those cost when we go to those?
I think
Depends, I
it's,
mean, they're usually between $30 and $80.
Oh, okay. They're not so
depending on
They're
what
not super
class it is.
expensive.
Oh, okay.
We also have to keep in mind that when they go, we need to do the outbound
reimbursement.
reimbursement.
I don't know if
No
we
one's
can,
drawn something
I don't know
like
if we
that?
can do it for them because they're not employees. We have a training program where if an employee goes to a training, a grant reimburses half of it, but that's specifically for employees, I'm pretty sure. Because I don't get it for my planning board members.
Excuse me. 30 to 80, and I know Counselor Stein went to the marijuana conference or whatever that was. That was a different thing.
So that's totally on the city.
Didn't inhale.
So it depends on the class you're taking. They range from 30 to
John, you need us to
The
reimburse
meat-
your
Shouldn't I
snacks.
have gone?
I don't remember what we talked about.
So the meet and greet that we had for Charlie,
Shouldn't I have gone?
how much did that, for all the food for that? What was that?
I think it was right around 400. That we
There's a lot of
would
these.
used the sweet spot to get some pastries for the staff meet and greets throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then Paul was fantastic and brought us a whole bunch of goodies, and he actually supplied the desserts that he brought at no
Yeah.
cost to us.
Wish I tried some.
They were delicious, so yeah, it was probably right around 400 for the
Yeah.
coffee, tea, water bottles, and then the food.
Just thinking there may be events like that we would, but so then $500 in our miscellaneous would be kind of where that sort of thing would come from. Okay.
The Maine Municipal Association Conference, do counselors go to that? It's in October, so it'll be next fiscal year.
You
I-
can.
I've gone a couple of times, but not as an elected, well, not as a,
Wait, are you asking about the MMA new counselor?
no,
I
MMA's
just didn't hear
annual
you.
conference in October has
Oh.
really cool
Okay,
stuff.
yep.
And I assume that's where that would come out of. It's not cheap to go, it's
Right.
multi-day. But if we're talking about what to budget for the coming year, I think a conversation about the value of the MMA conference would be
Some other
worthwhile.
good ones. I went to the Maine Office of Tourism Governor's Conference last year.
Oh, yeah.
So that was reimbursed,
Okay,
I think. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that,
so I guess, so I wouldn't want to reduce that just because it hasn't been used this year, because maybe we actually have conversations about what's available and who goes and reports back, and if you want to talk about the marijuana conference.
Maybe.
I would
Do
be
you remember
interested to
anything?
learn.
I shared a bunch last year about it. Right?
Yep,
Good, thank you.
Somebody remembers.
I remember. I remember we were there for that.
All right, so if you guys just want to take some time to think about each of those, we can revisit that later on. All right, next is city manager's budget. So I kept some changes that were planned by Glenn and then made some additional changes. I think Glenn was planning to just introduce the idea of breaking out more as a full-time communications person, but I just showed that as being planned, so that all the salaries are broken out, including hiring an administrative assistant for Charlie. That's separate from Maura, and then Maura going to a full-time communications specialist role. Human resources has traditionally budgeted under the manager's department, but this year, human resources has been broken out to its own department with its own budget. So that decrease in salary is reflected as well. So there was office supplies. Glenn had sought to increase that by $500. And no, sorry, that was decreased by $500. I was like, that's not right. Then the next one, travel and auto, was increased by 500 with the idea that, you know, Charlie will not have a city vehicle, so he will be looking for mileage reimbursements if he goes to conferences or travels. Then there's memberships to two town manager and city manager associations and the cost for those memberships. There's training, which I kept static. You know, again, Charlie will be coming to a new position. He'll have two staff members under him instead of one, although I guess with human resources being under the manager before, it's still constant. So keeping it at 5,000 so they can attend trainings that they need. Decreased conferences and meetings, to bounce some things out, but I also imagine that Charlie may be learning in City Hall more often than going to conferences and stuff in his first year. Then decreased professional services. It was kind of a decrease, just because it was underspent. We're mostly spent on legal services actually for this department. I'm not sure that the need will be the same moving forward. Then travel and food, we're kind of combine some past items to include travel and food for, again, if either of the employees travel for conferences. And there was also just a little bit for employee appreciation. Funds were used from the city manager's office to show appreciation to our public works crew, along with our economic development office, for working late nights. There was multiple like water main breaks in a row and snow emergencies, so showing appreciation for them. I included Maura's phone stipends in this budget, so that it's about $100 a month for all her postings that she does, contacting the media. She uses her own personal cell phone, taking photos, and then moved, again, like from the legislative budget to the manager's budget, a portion of that printing and advertising to cover the costs for Maura's potential material needs as a full-time communications specialist. So the overall budget does decrease. And you can see that reflected, the 23% decrease.
But that's because we're moving the
Yeah, that's just the shift.
shift.
And savings on office supplies.
I'm actually reviewing this. I think I made a mistake.
Yeah, the travel and food, I don't think made it.
No, I'm actually looking at the payroll. I think my payroll number didn't get updated to reflect Maura and an additional administrative assistant. So it should be 50K higher.
On which?
And the
page?
payroll, on both pages. So I have
Okay, so
12,
now you're to the vertical.
well, to both, so the total number for payroll is too low for both.
Yeah, so it should be
Yeah.
241,626.
Yes.
So what is it, yep, my next spreadsheet says Human Resources Administration.
We're on
So
city
city
manager.
manager is not your next.
I have
after
city
legislative.
manager budget explanation, but not.
Oh, wait, so then on that page, it's wrong.
Yeah?
It's the same numbers are on this that are on the oh, you don't need, there's only explanation. So this number, FY twenty-five payroll,
Yeah.
She doesn't have
Okay.
that.
so on the front page of this, the top number, the FY twenty-five payroll should be higher, 50K higher.
Thank you. Okay, so instead of the 191, 526, add 50K
Yes.
for the admin assistant.
It's got to keep it.
Thank you.
Brings the total number to 259, 126.
And that's
Question for you.
still a decrease.
On the second page of the narrative where you decrease professional services for new projects by 2,000, wondering the thought process on that. Are you assuming new city manager for the first year is going to be kind of all in on
Well,
learning before special projects, or just trends and how it's used?
that was part of it, and I just know a lot of the expenses from the past year were for legal services particular to the manager's office, and I don't think those will exist. Or they'll be pulled out of other legal services funds that were talked about earlier, not specifically from the city manager's office. So they weren't used on consultants, like it says consulting services for new projects, it was used on attorney's fees, where they may have been overspent in other
Okay,
areas, but
so
we
it
shifted
wasn't-
those.
So this is a more realistic number?
I
You
think so
the
for his first
3,000?
year, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So with that 50,000 increase, we're still looking at a total.
It's still a decrease,
Decrease,
but it
yeah.
would just be a lower percentage decrease, from the 273, 37 to 259, 126.
Do you know how many full-time equivalents that has just been added to the administrative budget? Because we've been, like, you took, that's half of one, then there's, it looks like there could be some more coming up too. Do you know how many overall for,
Like technically the positions.
yeah?
I know there's 2 full-time, which would be the administrative, well, it's not really adding, it's this communications director position is the new one technically.
So it'd be a half. What's
Well, if you
one
take,
and a half, right?
yeah, so it'd be the half for, clerk, for moving from like the public works portion fully to clerk. There'd be the one, whether it's the admin or the communication, taking that half and making them both whole. And then GA and human resources are looking to split, which would be another one. And I think, code will have another full-time position added.
That's 3
So it would be, yeah,
and a half, or 3?
I think it would just be, it'd be 3.5. So the half for clerk, full essentially for city manager,
Yeah.
full for GA and human resources, and then full for code.
Including an outgoing employee in code, or is that?
So, yeah, Lori's not included in FY '25, because she'll be retired by then.
We'll miss you.
Look at the smile on her face, though.
So you'll be getting, do you have an assistant now?
We have an assistant now, but we're looking at, with the upcoming comprehensive plan and short-term rental regulations.
Okay,
And we'll-
sorry, we haven't got
I
that
was
far
like,
yet.
we'll
I
go more
just,
into that
it
for
came to
code,
my
so-
head and I wanted to, like,
Yeah.
just as, trying to calculate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions for, other questions for city manager?
Can I throw something out there
quickly?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're talking about the new communications position, and I can talk about this in my budget if you want, but I felt like it was appropriate to bring up now. So I currently budget for the city's subscription of SurveyMonkey, which is a tool used for surveying. I budgeted for it back in, I believe, FY '20 or FY '21. I had to upgrade so that we could have multiple users. So we upgraded to the package where we can have 2 computers utilizing it, and so that we could collect more responses than we had in the past. So if you go with the lowest paying package, you can only have 1 user, and I think it limits you to about like 50 responses, which is kind of futile in the city of Ellsworth. So with this new department or position being created, I have budgeted for it within the economic development budget as in the past, but just hearing us speak about this, I feel like there's going to be a lot more communication efforts that are going to require more surveying. And so a suggestion that I have would be to potentially add it to the communication specialist budget under their tools or resources.
How much is it?
So I currently pay just over $600 for 2 users. There is a package where you can have 4 users, and I believe it's between $800 and $1,000. So what we have to do right now is, if I'm logged in, and let's say planning is logged in, planning is like, and then Carrie uses it because she has done some HR related surveys internally. I have to then disengage my computer from utilizing the software so that we can have her utilize it. So I do think they're like upgrading the package so that you have 4 users that are allowed to use it, so we don't have to go through this whole like bouncing around thing. And that would keep, that also would add some of the analytical and statistical tools that are not engaged right now. So we could do a lot more with surveying. So I'm just throwing it out there, and I can talk more about it when I'm actually doing my budget, but since you were talking about the communications budget, it's just something to keep in mind as a potential cost.
Thank you.
No, it's a good idea, and, Maura may have a separate software she prefers, but
Yep.
Moving it to her budget makes sense.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Further questions? If not, Carrie, Human Resources is up.
I have updated sheets for everybody to replace the sheets that are.
Sorry, that's okay. It's just water. It's okay.
It's
just the water.
Sorry, that got a little bit wet.
Thank you.
Smelling stuff over here.
Bless you.
Carrie, if you just want, I can pass them down.
I have, there's some there for you.
All right,
Backward.
thank you.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
That it?
I only get 1, is that what you're saying?
I think, do you want to?
Well, I mean, I was missing other pieces, I think I should get a bonus. Okay, so I'm gonna do it.
Okay, so I'll just start with my narrative. Currently, Human Resources is part of the City Manager's Department. I am proposing to separate this year, and the main reason for that is so that I can hire a part-time assistant to be shared with general assistants. Currently, as it stands, my department is very busy. I have absorbed several duties over the last couple years, and with that being said, I am struggling to tread water. I work quite a bit on the weekends and nights, and come in early, and I cannot keep up with the workload. So The goal is to hire a part-time person, mostly for clerical, administrative type work. Someone that can help with filing, can kind of help employees with various inquiries and things that they have. We just switched to outsourcing payroll, which was a huge task. So hopefully that, and it is starting to even out a bit, but that's been very time consuming as we've worked through all of the challenges that came along with that and trying to find solutions to all of the unique needs of Ellsworth. So that's the main reason for me separating out from the city manager's budget. The city continues to grow, and with that we hire more employees. Our needs increase, and it's becoming a lot for one person in human resources to handle. So everything else is pretty much standard as to what other departments have. Office supplies, just general things that are needed, work-related things, dues and memberships. I'm currently enrolled in for SHRM, which stands for Society for Human Resources Management. I currently have a subscription through them, a membership, excuse me. It's $264 a year, but they have a wealth of resources available to me. They offer a lot of classes, a lot of training, a lot of things such as just templates to use and all kinds of wonderful human resources related tools. So that's where I came up with that. Training expenses. So currently, last year I looked back, I did not attend a lot of training, but that was mostly due to time constraints. I would have gone to a lot more training if I had had the time to do so. I think with an assistant, that will help free up some time so that I can attend some more trainings. And SHRM has a certified professional course that you can take and take the exam so that you can become certified. It goes through a whole a whole host of various human resources related topics and trainings that I would be very interested in participating in. Travel, mostly just mileage reimbursements, hotels if needed for both myself and the assistant if that's approved. Most of my trainings are in Augusta at Maine Municipal Association. Conferences and meetings, I do attend the HR manager training at Maine Municipal each year. And there are other events that could fit within this, but they are not overly expensive, but I included enough funds for the assistant to attend as well because it would be beneficial for that person to also be trained and get to go to these events. So the next line item is professional development. And what this is new to the city. This would be for professional development of the management team. This would be mandatory training that we would enroll the management team in each year. Things to sort of train department heads on supervisory skills, conflict management skills, things that I think that we would benefit from greatly as a group. I did look into Southern Maine Community College offers a leadership skills course for anybody in a leadership role. And I looked into that, ran some numbers. We do have access to the Harold L. Fund scholarship. Sorry, it's not scholarships. It's like a grant. So they will match us they'll pay 50% of any training, which is where I came up with this. $7,500 is sort of based on that Southern Maine Community College leadership course, which I thought would be very beneficial for our employees, management team, just kind of making sure that everybody's staying on top of this type of professional development. Everyone sort of silos into their own department. Obviously, water, wastewater, public works, their individual department training needs are very different than someone who works in City Hall. But we all could benefit from the supervisory skills and conflict management type training courses. So that's what that line item is. Events is that encompasses the city's annual employee picnic that we have at Harbor Park each year and the holiday party. And then job advertisements, just increased that a little bit from last year. Job advertisements are incredibly expensive. So we had one job that we advertised in a newspaper that was $500 for a 2-week advertisement. So I just wanted to, we don't pay for all of our job ads. Some of them we don't need to because we fill the positions quite easily. Others are a bit more challenging. So this is just some extra funds to have available in case it's needed. If it's not needed, then we certainly wouldn't spend the funds at all. But I found that certain departments are tougher to fill than others, and it's nice to have the funding so that we can reach a wider audience. That's it.
I remember, Carrie, I remember we used Indeed for the city manager's search. I can't remember if you pay a subscription or if that's actually free.
That was free. That was a free version. And there's some positions here that we get a really good response rate with just the free version, and it's great. Other departments, not so much. So it can be a bit challenging. And really, like, I had $1,000 last year. I spent that on 2 jobs. One that didn't result in any, it didn't help us get any interest, unfortunately. But it's just an expensive thing to do. So, Nancy?
Questions, just because I want to understand the numbers and the plan.
Sure.
It's wonderful to hear about the professional development plan. I don't know that I understand what you're proposing, reading 3 different parts. Is it that you would attend the $7,500 program and then share what you learn with others?
No, the entire department head team would go.
For what, for $7,500, the whole team goes?
Yep, because we have access to Harold Alfond grant funds, and so they would pay 50% of the training costs.
So this is just the math, because I want things to make sense.
Sure.
You've got on your narrative, the Alfond funds would increase professional development funds to $10,000. I don't understand what that means.
That's me not, I'm sorry, I didn't update that. So basically I meant initially I was gonna propose $5,000 for this, I apologize.
Okay, so it'd be 15,000.
Yes, exactly. Yep, sorry about that. Thank you for noticing.
We just started, we're a month into my organization's budgeting, so I'm living this currently. I think that covers it. So the $7,500, 15 grand in all, 7,500, and the management team goes through a professional development. And where was that out of?
So,
SMCC or?
Yep, Southern Maine Community College, which I had spoken to them, and typically they would go to the organization to do this training. We're a bit of a drive from them. They said that they would do sort of a hybrid course, if we chose to do it. Of course, we don't have to stick with that particular training. It definitely would have met the needs of our department head team, but we could certainly look for other options.
Okay.
Yep.
Terrific.
Yep.
Question just on the math.
Sure.
This total is 111. This one is 112.
Yeah, don't
I know,
use
you
that.
said don't look at this, but it's got today's date, but do I toss this one away?
Yeah, because there's just extra line items that Carrie didn't include in here, so I think it was just when they carried over from Munis, there were
Okay.
old line items.
So I'm
from
gonna
certain
get rid
years.
of this one and hang on to this one.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate the information.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Next is planning. So I'll just stay here.
I kinda wanna see you at the podium.
No, I can. So for upcoming year, they're actually, I think you might want to use the table. Nope, they're all updated. All right, so there's an increase to the payroll, which is just the COLA from this past fiscal year. There's also a reduction in the assistant planner's salary to about 50K. And then, so those are the changes to payroll. Printing and advertising has been increased to support 2 citywide mailings, which I anticipate for ordinance changes over the next fiscal year. And then the total cost of planning board ads for a full year was around $3,500. It was a little less, but I figured round it up to $3,500 for cost increases. I made no changes to office supplies and travel and auto. Dues and memberships increased. The dues for Hancock County Planning Commission went up slightly, and then I've added a GrowSmart Maine membership this year. And then we technically paid for it this past fiscal year, I just hadn't properly budgeted for it. I just found a place for it, but this year it's actually properly budgeted for. And then conferences and meetings, I decreased slightly. I haven't spent, I guess I could say I've spent a lot of that, out of that budget, but not fully, so I just figured 1,100 would be a good number for that. And then professional services I've increased significantly, but I walk through how that will be spent. First is currently the city is going through a housing study through efforts of both the Planning and Economic Development Department. So we've both set aside funds for housing study implementation. We've actually already applied for a grant to do a project, mapping project, GIS mapping project, looking at land suitability. And so this $10,000 or the $5,000 from planning could be used towards that project. Then the second large project between the Planning and Economic Development Department is the Village Partnership Initiative implementation. The fund set aside for that would be so the larger implementation would be funded through federal funds through Maine DOT, but also through likely going to bond for the city. But if there are smaller action items that are more affordable that we don't have to necessarily bond, just budgeting for that for like signage, pedestrian improvements, smaller pedestrian improvements. So the city can just start to implement that plan without having to wait for the bond process. The planning department's currently working on the state forest expansion and the purchase of a lot that abuts to already city-owned properties the council approved previously. There are certain expenses related to that I cannot get grant funding for. Just due diligence, like an environmental review. And so that I priced that at about $12,000. I've split out legal fees that I use for my department specifically. Again, like if there's ordinance review. So I set that at $3,000. And then initial support for comprehensive plan implementation, I set $6,000, which again would likely be leveraged as match for grants that have programs related or suggested through the comprehensive plan. Any questions?
Did you say you reduced the payroll for your assistant?
Thank you.
manager?
I did reduce the payroll for the assistant, but with the COLA for myself from this past year, it's still increased by like a 1.5%.
But why did you reduce her?
She's leaving.
Elizabeth is leaving at the end of the month.
That's a really key point.
I did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're gonna
She
do
seems
something
lovely.
Maybe because you reduced her
Right. No, Elizabeth got a job in Bangor, so
Damn it, that's a shame.
Are you planning on replacing?
yes,
I have a question about office supplies.
yes.
Because there's joint office supplies, and then each different section has their own office supplies. Can you just describe like?
Yeah, so I mean, the comp plan, I guess, is a good example of that. We have these boxes that we set up around town to collect public engagement. Like, that's not something that's really shared, or we actually have shared them with more for other stuff, but generally it's not something that you can share. So it's something that my office needed that isn't within the general office supply. So just projects like that.
Yeah.
Departmentally specific
Right.
supplies versus
Paper clips.
Yeah.
So your proposed new assistant next year is included then as,
Yes, it's just about $6,000 decrease from the current salary,
okay, gotcha.
But.
assuming they don't have a law degree.
Oh, okay.
Another clarifying question on the chart. It just says payroll full-time. So where is the payroll for the part-time position?
There is no, both the assistant planner and city planner are full-time positions.
Okay, so it's just the moderation, okay. Thank you. Thanks.
I don't know if I should wait for Tammy to come back before moving on.
She can catch up.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
She has been here before, right?
I like
Here for an
that.
hour.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we said last night?
Next is code enforcement.
This thing up.
I said it's gonna be an hour.
I can keep going until 10.
Yeah, we cut you out of the deal.
Planning gets everything.
I would say I was confused because if we're getting two people in the department at that price.
So give him that change in the number.
Sure.
I'm happy to have that conversation with whoever I'm supposed to have that conversation.
Be me.
Add it to my list for Charlie.
Yeah.
So we'll go over the narrative. There was a change. I had put the mileage and travel separately, and I was asked to combine them both because it's kind of the same thing. I didn't know if there was a separate mileage one, because with only having one vehicle, a lot of times we have to separate to do inspections. And we are looking to budget for the mileage reimbursement plus travel for expenses if we go out of town for hotel, code enforcement certifications, and education. So it's not very often that we have to do that because the state offers free recertifications, but there are a lot of times, for example, Bobby is going to, out of this current budget, going to attend a verbal judo.
Oh, I want to know more.
You do?
I want to know
know.
more, I
It's
do.
good. It's a
I
good
know.
class.
My MMA puts it on, and it's a 2-day course. I was surprised, but we're going to be reimbursed for half of it through the grant, through the L Fund. And then next year, next budget, both Robert, I don't know if I introduced Robert to everybody, but Robert is, Robert Grant, he's going to be taking my place. He and Bobby are going to be taking a stormwater certification, which is very beneficial to our job, is understanding stormwater and new projects and how it's, maintained and handled. So they're both going to be going to that in October, and it will be online. And so they'll still be able to be here, but hopefully at that time, they will have the new employee that we are also budgeting for the code office. And then when we take on short-term rental regulations, we'll have a lot of inspections, or they'll have a lot of inspections to do for each of the new, the units. We're gonna have to make sure that they qualify, and especially if they're on septic systems. A lot of times you rent an Airbnb, and I may bring a lot more people than that septic can handle. And so we are proposing that if you are on a septic system, you will have to up the septic system to count for everything but kitchen and a bathroom. Because you can pull a pull-out couch in a living room, and anywhere, they're throwing beds everywhere because they invite so many people from these families. So we don't want these septic systems, especially on the water, to blow out because of overusage. So they're going to have to upgrade it.
And this is all projection because
Yes.
council action would have to be taken to kind of establish the system for short-term rentals, but at the bare minimum, a registration and inspection probably wouldn't be a bad thing, so.
So if they register, he's thinking about $300 a year and limiting it to 300 short-term rentals, it comes out to $90,000 that will bring in for the new employee, and having the extra money.
Right.
Yeah, to,
That's a conservative estimate for revenue generation.
All right.
Encouraged to hear that.
Oh, thank you. And then we have our office supplies, including paper supplies, file folders. We also utilize a lot of the sheet, what is that when we, yeah, sheet protectors, and then also laminating. If I have to post a notice, you know, for somebody if they're, let's say, have done a violation and I put that notice out, I can't put something on paper. I have to put it in the laminator so it can withstand the weather. Those kind of things. And then our plan, a data plan for our iPad, which will soon speak to Cassell when we are out of the office. Well, when they're out of the office. It's kind of weird speaking in your terms. It's for you guys, not me.
And again, a big smile on her face.
I offered to bring her back as an unpaid intern, and she hasn't accepted yet.
Yes.
But I'm hoping.
I'm sure it's gonna happen.
And then professional services, the line item fees are per diem for our commercial electrical inspector. We don't obtain a lot of training for electrical, so if it's a commercial project, this gentleman is a retired electrician, and he goes out and he will inspect things for me and then get back to me with what passes and doesn't pass. And he is a great benefit, especially for these large solar projects. Yeah, so he's per diem, and he's not gonna be on the clock. He is, anytime he goes out for the solar projects, and we're gonna start utilizing him maybe for some heat pump, because we have a lot of those coming up, and on-demand generators. People are getting a lot of those, so anyway, that's what that's for. And then our vehicle, for oil changes and estimated miles annually, and just the maintenance of it is $49.95. And then we have uniforms, so the new employee will have to fit her up with, or I'm saying her, we'll have to fit that person up with a uniforms for the week, and then any replacement clothing or boots for code staff. And then we have a violator enforcement fund. This fund is for my legal services for violators that have, you know, made shoreline zoning violations, or it's now going to be my violator fund just for fines and things like that, because I am collecting money now for solar fields. They weren't collecting that money before, it was just an electrical fee, whatever electrical work they had done. But in reading the ordinance and what is a structure, anything affixed to the ground is a structure, and our building permit fee is based on structure square footage. So all the arrays that are coming, we just have one coming up now. The arrays are charged at the square footage, and it was 327,000 square feet that they're anticipating for the upcoming solar field, and it will bring in $65,000, and that helps fund this violator. Fund, you know, people that don't clean up their yards, and we're trying to get Ellsworth cleaned up, and so that's where we're utilizing that money.
Just
So
as a
there, for
note-
legal fees, is that in the legal?
No, this is separate.
This is separate.
just because
It's gonna be an account in code.
Yeah. It's currently only in the narrative. It's not on the
Yeah, it's not on the,
tables.
I have to make a new account for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just, be stupid about it, but it's
That's not
it's revenue, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's,
I
and it's
think-
gonna be tied to your beautification.
Yes, I
Yeah,
wanna
so
make
it's
Ellsworth.
gonna be two accounts. She's gonna take some of the money from those fines to do some of the cleanup that they do on the big offenders,
Yeah.
on the most offensive properties.
We're trying. Slow but sure. It's not a fast process anytime you take a violator to court. doesn't work so easy a lot of times. So, I don't know, I think it's gonna be beneficial in the long run.
So
I
I
say
think.
once people see that we're, taking aim at cleaning up, that they're gonna see that, oh, maybe I better clean up my yard. And another thing is again, the trash tags, I'm gonna say it didn't happen before I retired, but it's hard for people that don't have a lot of money to buy trash tags. And so what happens is, you have trash ending up in the woods, and they can't afford it. So, I don't know, it's just a thing I would like to see eventually, that the city pay for trash, and that we don't have to buy trash tags.
So I think it's just a differentiation, because I think I was a little confused for the violator enforcement fund. I think the reason it's here and not in legal fees is because it's being funded from a specific
Yes.
code generated, it's not from the general fund like the other legal fees are.
Yes.
So it's from specifically generated code revenue that this expense is being paid out of.
I'm sorry, now I'm just
No.
confused.
So the other.
It's
le-
money coming in or it's money going out?
It's money going out.
Both.
But, well, it can only, so there will be two accounts. The account that's listed on the narrative is just money going out. And we'll make another account.
And it's like to pay the lawyers to fight the
Correct,
fight
but
about
it's
this
separate
stuff.
from the other legal services that we talked about earlier, because it's being funded through specific code-related
Yeah.
Revenue.
Like the solar fine. or
Yeah,
the permit
so it
fees.
makes a little circle in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
like,
Self-funding.
we collect the money from the if I cut down all the trees on the Union River, then
Stop.
you collect that money, but then you use that to sue me because I cut down all my trees on the Union River.
Right.
Yep.
I won't do that.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate that.
Questions?
Yes, clarifying questions, which, I have one of these and one of these.
That's not mine.
Code enforcement, they both say code enforcement, they have different numbers.
This, so Lori updated this very recently, so I'd use this one for now.
This one has today's date.
You're saying don't use this guy.
Print it today, but, yeah, use the,
So
not
do I
the front
hold-
spreadsheet.
Hold this one.
I put that date on there because that was the date of the
Oh,
workshop.
okay, I thought,
Yeah.
I thought it was the date run, and therefore.
It's the date of the workshop.
You're actually gonna need to pull both eventually, because there's a typo on this one, so.
But this is the wrong numbers, or this is outdated numbers.
I would just
They're
update
ac-
them on there,
Yeah.
and then at the end, you'll get a final. So you
These
can see your
numbers
notes and what you were thinking.
They're very similar, so
Okay.
I don't think there's too big of a difference.
So there's updates coming.
Yeah.
It's just good to know what numbers I'm supposed to be looking at. Help me understand how many people are in the department. Is there code enforcement deputy and looking to hire a part-time?
Not part-time, it'll be full-time.
Right, so it's wrong, that's what I thought, it's incorrectly labeled here, it's part-time payroll, but it should be full-time.
Okay, all right, and so the admin assistant is full-time,
Yes.
and is the 40,000 is
Yeah, that salary,
that salary?
after they've obtained all of their certifications.
Certifications,
Yeah.
because we want them to be able to issue permits, and to do that, you have to be certified as a code enforcement officer.
And you can get that for $18 an hour?
Well, after the certifications, it'll be $20 an hour.
Okay.
Or-
One of the
yeah.
things in my mind is just looking at the hourly rates for here versus other parts and
Yeah.
trying to reconcile where they come from, but, okay, so the payroll full-time is 2 people,
It's 3 people.
3.
okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but the number, dealing with what I have here,
Now, I don't know that, that's not my
that's
side
2
right there.
people. Okay. There are
There's-
currently, okay, so I'm just gonna ignore everything that says part-time.
Yeah.
There are currently 2 full-time people in the department, and you're proposing adding a 3rd full-time person.
Currently 3, there's the 2 of us and Bobby.
I don't know.
So-
Bobby's the deputy code.
So there's 2 code enforcement officers right now, as Lori trains Robert to
Right,
take
okay.
on the role. And then, there's Bobby, who's the deputy code enforcement officer.
Okay.
So there's 3 currently. They would like to maintain that, but just with 1 code enforcement officer, 1 deputy, and then now an administrative
Okay, right,
assistant.
and I get transition, it's wonderful, you've
Mhm.
got overlap. So
Yeah.
what is normally 2 full-time, you're looking at making 3 full-time
That's correct.
with the admin, even though, yes, right now
Yeah.
it's 3 for training.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
look forward to updated
Yeah.
spreadsheets. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we're out of here.
And one thing that wasn't covered, there is permit revenue numbers here.
Yeah.
Just for your information, but. Sue, tax collector.
But that's the one, it just goes to 2022.
Yeah, there's no FY10.
Sure.
I think it's the.
Thanks.
Oh,
No, it does only go to 2022.
nope,
Wait, do you not
I'll
have
see if
it?
there's updated numbers. or
I think
what.
it was for code.
Yeah,
You're good.
We're good?
yeah, you're good.
I'm good, okay.
So,
This is the first year the tax office will be presenting its own budget. So what I did was I went in through finance budget for FY '23, and I went through all of that and I pulled out what applied to the tax office, because that's where it used to be. So that's where my figures came from. I don't have a true history of what we've spent, other than to do that, to go through the finance budget. So in trying to figure it all out, the payroll, the two deputy tax collectors, they're union, so I don't have any say at all in what their payroll will be. And then I figure for the three of us, I came up with $161,865. That would cover all three. I also, and that didn't work in any raises, by the way, just so you know. I had office supplies for $1,500, but I'm not really sure that I need that, because listening to what was going on, we've got the joint supplies, joint office supplies line. I guess I thought that was going away, so now that it isn't, I think I can take that out. I don't think I need it, because there isn't, I can't think of anything special that I would need to do my job. I mean, nothing specific to the tax office. It's all stuff that anybody would have or would need, pens, paper, envelopes, yeah, I mean, unless it was a foreclosed stamp, I don't know, but it wouldn't cost $1,500 either, so. I put $500 for travel and auto expense. That's to go back and forth for trainings. And then the membership dues, $90 is all I put, and that just covers, it's $30 for a membership for each of us, and that's all I need. I don't, at this point, I don't know of any other memberships that we would really need to have, although I haven't done a whole lot of investigating into what else I could take part in, but for this year, that will do for us. Training expense is $2,500 is what I'm looking at, because I would like to do more training. Last year, we didn't get a lot of training in, and I have a new person, and I would like to give them the opportunities to go to training as well as myself. And then the conference and meetings at $250, mostly that's for the MMA convention, because I would like to attend that. That will be the last thing I need to do in order to get my tax collector certification. So I put that down there just for me. I didn't put it for anybody else. And then the tax liens, that's obviously my biggest expense. $22,000 is what was also, I believe that's what was budgeted last year for it, and we hit that pretty darn close. So, I wouldn't want to change that. I'd like to leave it right there. I'm hoping we won't need all that,
but you never know.
So just so some of the new counselors know, those tax liens are recovered when, as a revenue, so it'll be on the revenue side,
Right,
so.
yeah.
It would basically be a wash.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, as long as, yeah, we get them.
As long as
Yeah.
you're
As
successful.
As long as people pay.
Do you
It's
want to
pretty
take the verbal
cyclical.
judo class?
Actually, I had thought of it. Now that I know Bobby's taking it, I might.
So it'd be a wash except your expenses and having to track people down.
Yeah, well, it's a wash, if everybody pays. And generally, it gets down to it, there's not a lot in the end. It may take them a year and a half, 2 years, but generally we'll get it. We just may not get it in the tax year that we spent it, but,
It's pretty cyclical.
When you-
yeah, right.
When you do get it, where does it show up? I'm not seeing revenue in your.
Yeah, I didn't put that in because I didn't know what I was doing,
That's fine,
basically.
yeah. So where, Tony, where does it show?
There should be a revenue department, that's a city-wide revenue.
It usually has
We
its
just
own,
don't have
it
that
has
yet.
its own
Yeah.
binder
Right.
tab.
Yeah,
It should
Yeah.
be like tab 2 or 3 in the future at some
Okay.
point.
Thank you.
but I will add that so that next time I get that in there for you. Office equipment and maintenance, I put 500. Again, that's probably not, there's probably not much I would need, where I would need to spend that couldn't come out of the joint office. But I do need to get a new chair for my new person, I think, but other than that. And then the tax bills and commitment, we outsource the printing and mailing of the tax bills. And it came in, I put $4,400. Last year, it came in under that, a little bit under that, but I'm allowing for the increase in postage because it's increased twice since then. So I think that would cover it perfectly. So that's all I got. I don't have a narrative for you, but I'll make one up and get it to you.
Is the, I guess we don't see a total percent increase.
The total, well, I come up with a total of everything of $194,305.
And it's just kind of hard to see what it would have been last year without.
Yeah, because and I can't, I mean, I went through and tried to pull everything out, but that was a little bit difficult. Next year, it will have better numbers, but that's kind of what I figured it to be, what I found. I didn't increase anything over last year that I could see. I tried to really keep it right where it was at because I don't really know if those are the most accurate, if I got everything or what have you, so. Are we good? We're good?
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Finance?
All right, for city councilors, I want to take this moment to introduce my new deputy. This is Nate Moore. He comes to us from the state of Florida, where he ran, how many churches were in there?
We had about 5 campuses.
Yeah, so he ran 5 campus facility for Cavalry Baptist and a school. So he comes to us with a very strong operations background, which was something that I was looking for in this, not only the accounting, but operational accounting, which is a talent all by itself. For those of you that own your own businesses, you know that.
Nate, what was your last name? Ward?
More.
More.
M-O-O-R-E.
Thank you.
Welcome, Nate.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You're getting away easy this winter.
Yeah.
Wait till next.
The winter's is no one's. That's right.
It's about 80 degrees in Daytona right now.
You must be freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay. You grew up in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
My budget's pretty straightforward. I have a mostly new staff this year, again. So a lot of, I'm increasing things like travel and training because I have new staff that Nate's gonna need. Like me, he comes to this without a government background. So he's gonna have some of the transitional training for government accounting, which is slightly different than regular GAAP accounting. One of my new clerks has expressed, she's a go-getter. She's expressed a lot of interest in getting her credentials spruced up and learning a lot more about accounting, which is something that we're gonna be doing kind of whether you want to or not in our department, because after 15 months of being at the city, I realized that a lot of the problems that we have come from a lack of skills in this particular area. It's cost the city a lot of money to fix it, where it's probably gonna be almost another year to really get out of the woods with it. So, and at the same time, Nate and I have talked about the things that we wanna refine. Now that we have new software and we have more capabilities, we wanna stop spending so much on postage. We're going more to doing AP as ACH payments. It'll save us on fraud, it'll save us on postage, and it'll save us on office supplies. This is a pretty big spend for us. We probably spend more than any other department on postage. Dues and memberships, we have memberships to MMA for the clerks, for me, for him. We have memberships to GFOA, which is Government Finance Officers Association, which is national. And then we have Maine Government Finance Officers Association, and with that we get New England Government Finance Officers Association free. Professional services, this is audit. This is various things, some legal, but bond counsel is included in this so that to kind of offset legal, because I never know exactly what might happen. I foresee the need to be spending this kind of money for a little while longer. Like, we're still digging out from the lack of accounting for about 18 months. There's been no reconciliations in the city when I got here for more than a year. So it's hard to go back and retroactively fix those things and then go on throughout the day with your regular workload. And we have quite a lot of workload, quite a lot of cleanup. We're doing a lot of administrative cleanup, going through files. I mean, some of it's very basic, but it's also the time when we see where the opportunities are to refine systems and provide more service to finance, because we have a lot of work to do in that department. We have only 4 people to do it, which means if anyone's out, it's problematic, especially during the week when the warrants are being prepared, or if I have to go away or Nate has to go away, then all the things that each one of us does falls on the other. So that's part of why we want to improve the skill sets of the clerks so that they're comfortable doing more work, a little more interesting work. It's kind of boring to just create a warrant every week. And I have one that really is interested in doing that, so I'd like to support that position. Other than that, everything's fairly static. I have an office equipment budget is up this year because I have a printer that is about to die. And I'm not sure if I budget that through my department, so I just budget it through my department. And then I need to replace some desks in my office. I have, one of my clerks can't sit for prolonged periods of time. She has a back injury, so. Since I have a automatic desk and my previous deputy had one, it seemed fair that they should be allowed to have one. It's a lot easier to work. We work long hours at the computer, so it just seemed like a fair thing to offer them. So other than that, don't be super excited about the change in my budget. Part of that is that tax collector was pulled off my department, so it seems like it's artificially lower. Our salaries are up to bring my position and also my deputy's position to parity in our field with what finance directors make in towns this size and deputy finance director, and also in our field. So it is one of the most high-demand jobs that there is because it's a hard job. And that's it.
And I have to.
Any
just
questions?
I have to make one comment on the raises. You know, there's, in the personnel ordinance, there's a section on market and merit raises. You know, I, as a month-long city manager, am not able to really assess, there were not performance reviews performed for pretty much anybody in the city, so there's no way I can actually assess a merit raise for anybody. So I've asked most departments to not submit raises this fiscal year, and just wanted to present that to you and give you all the option and allow Charlie to make that decision, but I thought this fiscal year would be a bad time to increase wages based on merit or market, because it usually requires some type of performance review to look back on.
The other issue
from the
was scope
manager.
of work. When Lisa left as Public Works Director, there was no arrangement made to fill the administrative void of her job, which is significant because everything that Public Works does is subject to single audit. So I took on the role of maintaining the administrative files of all the Public Works departments. And my department has to continue to do that until they make a decision and find someone to do that work. I think Tammy's probably the person most likely to understand what those how those records have to be kept.
Yeah, it was always handled in the finance department before it was in Public Works, so.
Yeah, Lisa used to do it, and there was no project files or anything, so we put those together ourselves in finance so that we could keep track of the expenses of each one of those projects.
We can only see the total payroll, FY '24 to '25, and that includes the tax collector payroll going off the books.
Yeah.
Could we see, and then we can see FY '25 payrolls, I guess these numbers include the raise that you're talking about?
Yes.
Could we see on a next iteration what they were in 2024? Just see the.
Yes.
Or maybe you know the
I have
percentage.
I've had a lot of turnover, so it varies a little bit, but yeah, I can provide that for you.
Matt, can I catch up on something you said?
Sure.
You're putting a hold on merit raises and parity raises.
I think it's appropriate to give, yeah.
I'm not, yes,
Yeah.
pause.
Mhm.
When, and did I also understand you say, because there hadn't been evaluations, or
Yes,
can you say when the last time was there were?
not for everybody. I don't know, it seems there was no consistent system for performance evaluations for department heads, and then even staff below department heads, so I don't have an answer for that.
Well, that is the answer.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, no direct
I
answer.
appreciate knowing that, thank you.
Is there like a standard of that, or is that something that just Ellsworth does, or is that like an MMA?
Should be best practice, it should be at least once a year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're adding, isn't that something that we're
It's-
adding?
So, yeah, Gary's
Yeah,
sent out an
Gary did
email to
Yeah.
encourage department heads to begin doing them again, and then when Charlie comes on and has had enough time to work with the department heads, he can start doing performance evaluations.
Thank you.
Well, I guess my question was more about the merit raises, the
So,
standard for.
in the personnel ordinance, once every 3 years, an employee is eligible for a merit or market raise, and there just has to be, facts to back up the request for that, and then the granting of such. So, department heads will do that for their employees, and then the city manager will authorize based on the recommendation from the department head, but then the city manager does it directly for department heads.
And that's kind of separate from,
Cola.
It's sep-
Cola.
yes, separate from the cost of living adjustments, and also separate from, at some point you might say, oh, we can't hire a fill in the blank engineer for public works.
Mhm.
Do we have to rethink what we're paying someone for that
So
job.
for, well, if you haven't hired anybody.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, there's merit increase, like, you, Matt,
Mhm.
this is how you've done as a city planner, and so we're gonna increase, and then there's,
Parity.
like, yeah, parity, or just like, are we, here are all our jobs, are we paying what we should be paying for the jobs?
Yeah, so in the personnel ordinance, the way it's written, they're combined in the same section. So it's still once every 3 years, market and or merit.
Oh, market or
yeah.
merit,
Yeah.
okay. And has that been on, like, oh, the 3 years is up for that on blah, blah,
No,
blah?
that has not been consistently applied, but that's long-standing.
Oh,
That
yeah,
seems like it
right.
has not been consistently
Yeah.
applied.
And I think it's like anything, there are some departments that are pretty on top of that, tracking
Yeah.
their employees' 3-year marks,
Yeah.
and then there's others that
You just, yeah.
they just aren't.
Yeah.
And that's outside of, again, like change of scope, but if change of scope, it's generally a stipend, and then when those extra additional responsibilities are removed, the stipend should be removed. Unless they're permanent.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So sometimes if, we lose an employee and have a hard time filling a position, another employee will have to take on extra responsibilities
Really?
to make sure the work gets done, so they'll be
I
given a
understand.
stipend,
Thank
short
you.
term until that position can be filled. Now, if the changes are long term, the raise
Okay.
could be too, yeah.
Thank you.
Questions for finance?
You mentioned the audit, which is one of the biggest line items here, would have to continue for a while. Did you have an idea, for a while next year, or for a while for the next few years? Or-
It's not just audit, it's also the audit of the chart of accounts. If you go through the city's chart of accounts, now that they've been pulled out of Munis, there's a lot of, we caught a lot of it, but there's quite a bit of duplication, and there's literally budget items that get funded every year and never spent. So it's just a matter of going through that and taking all of that out. So it's a lot of cleanup, it's a lot of refinement, it's a lot of kind of rethinking the way that we do things. One of the things that not only staff has asked me, but also citizens, is to have a budget that is more transparent, so that people understand what money is getting spent on, and not to have things like, a fund that pays all the benefits of everybody in one. They want to see it by department. People want to know what we're spending on different departments. And so I had talked to the previous city manager about that, about doing that, and he actually was supportive, and it would also help the managers to understand their budgets, to monitor their spend, to look at their workflow, and to find ways, in business, one of the greatest things that you can do is save money. And I don't think that should be not looked at in government. I think there's ways to save money in government without, hurting the poor, or, there's this notion that there's something noble about spending a lot of money, and I just don't agree with that. So I'd like to bring a little bit more control and a little bit more transparency to the whole spend of the city government.
So, how many more years do you think that?
For audit?
Yeah.
I think it'll be done this year.
Okay.
My estimate of how long it would take to clean it up was 2 years. So I'm at 15 months now. So I'm hoping if we get through these software issues, that'll be it. So this is only, I'd like to get it back down to like 60. But there's a mess. It's a really big mess.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks.
Actually, can I ask a question that's not specifically about the finance department, but a little bit about the budget or the budget thingy? This thingy.
We're losing our words.
Sorry, binder.
The binder.
This is how it always looked before, and you have the new ones, which I assume the reason that this format looks like this is because of the new software. Is that right?
Well, I'm just changing it to be more understandable.
Okay. One thing that
A lot of the accounts have changed. There's the historicals are mixed up, so
Yeah.
that was a format, I don't actually know where that came from.
So that, the part of the answer is yes, that's developed straight from Munis, I believe. It's from
Okay.
that software. So
So
the
it's gonna
account
look-
numbers aren't, the new chart of accounts isn't on that. If we
Yeah, those
were
are
just to
all
go into
old
Munis and
accounts.
re-download everything again, the new chart of accounts for Cassell wouldn't be accurate on there.
And it has budget worksheets too, so it'll probably look a little bit different next week, or next year.
One of the things that's, I find really helpful is, I guess I don't, other than I hate change, so I like things to look the same, but I accept that that won't be the case. But the way the old one worked is it would go back to 2021 or whatever, like 5 years, and do those comparisons across.
Yeah. I mean,
It just
a lot
helps,
of it
because a
is
little
just-
bit, it's like we're trying to make a decision looking at only this narrow 2 years or whatever, and it just helps me to see the bigger picture, so I don't know if there's a
So I
way to.
guess an option would be, would you find it more confusing to have a download from Munis like that if possible, but then in addition, this newer version? Because Ann has to manually input all this data right now while Cassell's still being.
I think it's okay to
built
have
up.
both,
Yeah.
like what you're saying.
Yep, okay.
Just so I can look,
Mhm.
yeah.
Let's explain what it is too.
I think by next year, we'll have the whole process in Cassell, and it should be.
Or I'll just bring all my books
That's right.
next week.
Because all the data that was in Munis has been migrated over, but it's really needs a lot of
Yeah, no, and I don't want
cleaning
you
up.
to waste time.
Yeah, I
plugging
mean,
in
I
all
didn't have time to
numbers.
waste this
Yeah.
year, so, but I think it'll be a lot more like what you're looking for by
Yeah.
next year.
All right, nothing else? Larry, you're up. Stop doodling.
He's trying to keep himself awake.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gotta pass his doodle around.
Doodle time. Oh, wow, that was impressive.
Now I know why I buy a lot of pens every year.
Wait, I missed.
I actually have an office supply.
Larry, could you show the
Larry, I
council one
missed
more
it.
time?
I was
what?
looking
Show the
down.
council one more time.
Oh, that's for the last 2 hours.
Yeah,
Fancy.
and he's designing a tattoo.
That's
You're
right.
like a
I
Zen
think that's
pen.
gorgeous.
It's next year's corn maze.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
It really does help, because before I started doodling, I was like yawning and closing my eyes, and
We're
I
fascinated.
got into it.
Hey, Matt, maybe we could put that corn maze in our dog park.
Could.
Well, good
You
evening.
can maintain it.
I'll make this really quick. I have no increase in my budget.
Looks like a decrease.
Except for, I think Matt suggested that because of the last 5 years, we've had some legal fees. I think of the 24 years here, I think those last 5 years were just unbelievable with legal fees. But I don't see that happening for another 20 years. There's no more big, gigantic properties that, multi-million-dollar properties. No one's asking for an abatement. No one's appealing to the Board of Appeals. So I don't see any big tax abatements. And that's why, if I deny a tax abatement, that's why it goes to court, or to the state board and then to court. So I think you had suggested adding more money to legal. So I think that's pretty much all we have is.
I have one more note, because I think we talked about when we were reviewing this, and I think maybe I wasn't clear. I just have to add the COLA from last year to the payroll also. So there would be an increase from last year to this year just for the cost of living adjustment that's not currently reflected.
So every department is gonna get that the same.
Well, the same percentage, yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be at least some increase in payroll due to last year's COLA, yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any questions about this budget not increasing. But I want to inform you that there's other data I'll be supplying you. There's, as Tammy knows, there's spreadsheets I can provide that show tax rates of previous years, values of previous years, budgets approved of previous years, statistical data that I think may probably help you just as a reference.
I think it would be great.
Yeah.
And other information like that. And then as we get to the end of the budget, I'll certainly have an estimate of what the final value estimated will be for the next fiscal year.
A question? When I came into your office, there's a woman there, you have an assistant, right?
Marcia.
Marcia.
Marcia,
okay.
Marcia.
So, Marcia. I guess I need to understand, it says payroll full-time, so that's like, this is everybody for both of you there?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so I want to understand that. I want to give, you and I haven't met, but I want to give you a shout out in front of the rest of the council. You remember I did the presentation or whatever it was, just spoke about the homestead exemption, and that the deadline was coming up. And Larry and I had a conversation where when my daughter and I bought our house here, I sold a house in Monmouth, and when I came in to the clerk's office and asked about the homestead exemption, they said you have to wait a year, which I'd always heard. Larry was the one that clarified if you already owned a home and were eligible for homestead, and then moved to a new town in Maine, there's no 1 year wait. So not only did he work with me on an abatement for my daughter and I of $432, he's designing his own homestead exemption form that says it, because the one that comes out of Maine Revenue Service?
Yeah, and I've had that designed for years now, because it's not asking the questions. The state form, it's very generic.
So having your own, and I didn't get as far as your office because somebody in the clerk's office said you're not eligible when I went home. But
Yeah.
that kind of proactive, helping people ought to be recognized. So I want to recognize you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you for doing a great job with that. Like, again, not only just helping me and my daughter, that's gonna help that's $432 to go towards the repairs we need to make on the house, but going
Yeah.
a step beyond and having it right on the form.
Well, even though we
Now, we just need to get people to go up to the assessor's
Yeah,
office and get
even
the
though we'd
form.
never met, I've been watching you on TV.
I get that a lot.
So, I appreciate it.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Jason, if you're awake, your turn.
Dying to know what Cody is.
City-owned broadband infrastructure.
Broadband.
Ooh. No, what does that do?
That's generous of you.
You're
All
here
right.
anyways,
Yeah.
right?
Jana, you're up.
Sweet.
Good job, skated.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he's gonna be here
Does that
anyway.
mean it's gonna be
right.
shorter other weeks? Because I have a hard time holding on.
Other weeks
This
have
is
one
very
department.
odd to have it this way.
Okay.
Yeah, so does everyone have a table for economic development as well as a memorandum?
We don't know yet.
Yes, all right,
Pretty
perfect.
sure they do.
All right.
So, let's make sure it's the right table, the one,
Yes, there's,
no?
No.
Yeah.
oh, they're talking about this one in the back, the one that Jana supplied.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's upside down.
But it's put in the wrong way, I can't
Part
do
of
that.
admin.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
So ignore the
Right
first.
there.
is it called
he's
Economic
in
Development
maintenance.
Budget
He's part of admin.
Explanation?
Yes.
Everything's in the book for him.
Got
That's
it.
already very explained.
He did that.
So this goes line item by line item from the economic development budget. First being payroll. Nancy, to clarify right up front, I am the only person full-time in that office. So that number that you see is reflective of me. And the increase was due to the 5% COLA from FY '23, or '24 to actually, no, FY '23 to FY '24. So that's what my current salary. I'm proposing no change to printing and advertising, office supplies, or travel and auto expenses. I have been able to streamline some of my dues and memberships. You don't have this copy in front of you, but some of my dues and memberships include a membership to the Maine Development Foundation, which is a statewide economic development organization, a membership to the Maine Economic Development Council, Maine Business Magazine yearly subscription, and a yearly subscription to Maine Town and City, which is a publication as well. Again, I pay for SurveyMonkey currently out of my budget, and if that's something that the council would consider moving into, what are we calling more as, but the communications budget?
City manager
Okay, city manager budget. Then that would be great. I'd also offer to pay part of it if that made the numbers work better, so, because I do have it budgeted in here. I've significantly reduced my cost of training. I've found over the past few years that the majority of my training I get at conferences and meetings. So Build Maine, the MMA conference, Maine Development Foundation has conferences and meetings throughout the state. There's a Maine Office of Outdoor Recreation holds a Maine Outdoor Economy Summit now every year that I attend. So a lot of the professional development, they have sessions during these conferences that I attend, and that's where I get first a lot of networking opportunity, but also a lot of professional development opportunity. Likewise, we are part of the Maine Alfond Workforce Compact that everyone's been talking about that provides that I believe every employee gets up to $1,200 worth of professional development training. So I was able to cut that significantly. So the meat and potatoes of where you'll see an increase in my budget are going to be under the professional services and economic development services line items. There is an increase in professional services. As Matt noted, he and I, between the planning office and the economic development office, we are sharing some of the implementation of the village partnership initiative planning and the housing study. I also, in addition to supporting the implementation of the housing study, I think there needs to be some funding to supporting the housing task force that we are planning on putting together. They're going to more than likely want some training and some education and some workshopping and things like that. So I felt the need to be able to allocate some funding toward that. There, you'll see that I have allocated $18,000 toward implementation of the city's business attraction plan. For FY25, I am planning on updating the tax increment financing incentive program plan that we have for the city. I feel like it's a great time after finalizing the business attraction plan, and the comp plan will be also finalized. We will have more of an idea of where business incentives should take place within the city. We also haven't updated that plan since 2013, so it is definitely the time to do it. And I've also, since we are allocating some funding toward the Village Partnership Initiative, which the scope of that is mainly in the downtown area, I've set aside funding to also look at the High Street corridor. In the business attraction plan, they called it a High Street master plan. I'm not sure if we have to go as far as conducting a full master plan. We have put in for funding through the US DOT for Thriving Communities Partnership Program. If we do get that funding, then that money that I've set aside can help match and implement the actions that come out of that, which I see as being some streetscaping, beautification, making more connections between both sides of High Street. Right now, it's not very pedestrian friendly, as many people know. So really looking at that aspect of it. Miscellaneous expenses has gone down. I decreased that based on just the actuals that I find myself using that funding for. It's more or less if I host workshops or if I host functions through City Hall or put out, I don't do a lot of like big mailings. I think I've done a few with the broadband committee in the past that I've budgeted for. But if there's mailings that I have to do to businesses to participate in certain types of stakeholder events and things like that, I usually will tap into that budget. Workshop coordination, I'm actually increasing this year as a result of the business attraction plan. So there was suggestions within the business attraction plan to hold workshops to support the various different targeted business clusters. So you'll see in the narrative that I provided that I'm looking at doing a workshop series that would work with housing developers or just commercial business developers, contractors and housing materials manufacturers. So we had a great conversation with the Genesis Fund about a few different types of programs that they have that I didn't even know about that I think that developers in the city of Ellsworth would really benefit, or at least they would have knowledge of and could potentially tap into. So I'd like to host those types of events here, not only to educate, but to strengthen relationships and ties between that community and that stakeholder group within the city and the city of Ellsworth itself. Childcare opportunities, again, I didn't realize that the Genesis Fund has a specific program that childcare providers could tap into. CEI is another organization that offers workshopping through that, so hosting those events throughout the community as well, and hopefully working with the YMCA and the school department to really get stakeholders together around that topic. And then we've been working between the planning office and the economic development office with other regional staff, Bar Harbor, the island, Trenton, Lemoyne, to strengthen our ties together because we have similar challenges. And so it's a way of communicating best practices, how we can work together to potentially offer more housing, what are the types of housing models that everyone's looking at to be able to incentivize housing, things like that. So it really provides that space for us to communicate with each other, to have those conversations. So that's all through workshop coordination. Again, the expenses aren't really that high, but knowing that there's going to be quite a few of these series coming up in FY25, I budgeted higher than in the past for those. Economic development services. So again, as a result of the business attraction plan, there's quite a bit of, again, not really high cost programming that we could run through the economic development office in the city. One of these programs I've drafted a pilot for is a community kitchen and local food space consortium. That's bringing together the organizations that have community kitchens within the city of Ellsworth and other nonprofit and for-profit businesses that are interested in food entrepreneurship as well as growing like the ag economy in Ellsworth. So I honestly have no idea how much that program, it's a pilot, so I put $2,500 here to help support it. I'm going to need to pilot it to understand what the true costs are going to be to help support that. So I felt that was a good estimate based on what I have right now. It would give me some tools to be able to get out there into the community and offer support from the city. So downtown facade, streetscape improvement, and arts program is all combined together. You'll learn a lot more about this during the April 9th. We're going to have a public hearing about a community development block grant for a facade program. So at that time, I'll be asking for some matching funds, but that would be out of FY24, like our current budget cycle right now. So trailing into FY25, I foresee that the program's going to need to be funded, continue to be funded. So that's why there's an additional $15,000 there to be able to continue with that project through to fruition and to the end. And I'm happy to talk about any of these in further detail. I put some funding aside. We still do have a broadband committee with the development of the main connectivity authority. We've really changed our focus to broadband equity and literacy type programming, so there's some funding for that. And then lastly, under there is another program that would be new. It's the Entrepreneurial Startup Scholarship Program. I'm looking to match funds with the Ellsworth Business Development Corporation on that, so I would contribute $1,000, they would contribute $1,000, we'd have $2,000 to be able to fund, and we would put together a program where people could apply to get a scholarship to then go to professional development in entrepreneurship and business type programming. So for example, like the Top Gun program is a program that is for startups specifically in the state. It's a $600 application fee, so if someone applied maybe to take 50% of that cost, we would be able to say, yes, we'll do this for you, but we want to work with you in keeping your business or your company here in Ellsworth, and how can we generate that activity? So it's showing that we're investing in startups and entrepreneurs and small business here in the city, and encouraging that type of programming. And then the oddball in this whole thing is I've created a new reserve account for a trails fund. Again, this is a recommendation coming out of the business attraction plan. $5,000 really doesn't push the needle when it comes to what we need for trail maintenance and enhancement in the city, but it's a start, and I feel like if it's a reserve account, it's something that we could add on to. We could also use it as match to bigger grants that are out there for trail maintenance and enhancement to hopefully continue to add money into this fund. But it's a start. I feel like this could be something that we could work with the Recreation Commission further on, as well as maybe Frenchman Bay Conservancy and other types of
Arbor Commission.
And the Arbor Commission, sure. But I don't, you know, some of the counselors may not know this, but like we don't have a dedicated fund right now to trail maintenance and enhancement. So it's really piecemealed together. The highway department may put some funding into, let's say, the rail trail. If the fence breaks, they have to take out of their operations account to be able to fix that. If there's a washout at Knowlton Park on one of those kind of twisty-turny gravel-like trails, there's nothing there that we have that goes toward maintaining that. So this is really the start of something where, you know, I'm identifying it specifically for trails. I feel confident doing that in the economic development budget because as part of the TIF plan that we have right now, trail maintenance and enhancement is one of the community uses that we can put funding toward. So that's why it's here. If you want to see it somewhere else, I'm open to it, but I just wanted to put this out there as an idea and concept to the council. Yes, Nancy?
One question, this is fabulous. And given the hour, maybe you and I can talk tomorrow, just trying to understand, you've got $2,000 for the broadband equity, and yet there's the regional and tribal broadband partnerships across the state, so I want to understand why
Sure.
you're budgeting some if each region has significant funds for it, so you and I can just
Sure.
help me understand that part.
Okay, no problem.
But I've got to say, for a staff of one person, this is pretty incredible.
Thanks.
Lot going on.
Yeah.
Even though we made you stay till very close to the end.
That's okay. And if you want to take a look to, like in the memo, the last page, page 3, talks about these projects in a very simplistic way, like how they fall under. So the target areas are housing, transportation, childcare, broadband, business and workforce development and attraction, supporting the visitor economy and hospitality cluster, and supporting the food and beverage manufacturing cluster. And all the different tasks are bulleted here, and they all are corresponding with the line items. So.
Just so you're not too worried about Jana, I didn't really explain it in my budget, but for the new assistant planner position, we already kind of do this where we'll share that person's time, but just making it more formal. She'll have an actually dedicated number of hours from that individual to help with her projects. So probably like a 60-40 split, 60 planning, 40 economic development.
So next fiscal year, you might see there might be some of my payroll budgeted toward that role too, just to, you know, we haven't been like truly successful in the past in finding somebody who can do both. It takes a unique individual. So we're gonna work together, look at the job descriptions that we have from the past, kind of put something together. And I'll sit in on the interviews just to be there to see if it's possible. And if it is, score. But yeah. I'm also looking at recruiting interns. If anyone from the school department is listening, I have reached out to Bill Tracy. There are a few individuals who he has sort of selected in his head that could help with some of these projects. So that's exciting too.
It's really exciting to see. I mean, we and previous councils have put a lot of time talking. You've put time talking and funding feasibility studies and like the business attraction plan study, and to see now results, recommendations actually lined out.
It is very satisfying and fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
That's
just
what
gonna-
makes my job exciting right now. Yeah.
I could see that reserve account going to Recreation Commission, except that there's no staffer there, and so like that might get forgotten about when matching for funds and things like that, but maybe eventually.
But if there's a Parks and Recs department in the future, that would be an obvious place for that.
Per se.
Just hypothetically speaking, if that were to happen.
Yes.
Matt, do I use this currently keep this as well
Good.
as this?
Any more questions or?
Thank you, Jana.
Do you,
No, go ahead.
only if you have this like top of head, like a total amount of grant funding brought in, rounded to the nearest.
Million.
Something.
No, but I can put something together from each fiscal year, probably. I can tell you about some projects, like right now, last month I went after 3 grants. This month I'm going after 3. We're going after NBR, Northern Borders Regional Commission, again for the water treatment plant. We were really successful with congressional delegated spending over the past few years, so it's in the
Probably gonna try that again in April.
right. So with those projects, it's in the upper millions of dollars, just because of the opportunity to tap into congressional delegated spending, NBRC. It's amazing to me that we just learned about one last week that's coming out of the main office of outdoor recreation, specifically for trail projects and those types of things, that never existed. I mean, those things didn't exist not even a year ago. So they're really taking the funding that they got, and these are all coming out of the state ARPA funds, so we're able to tap into those through different programs. And luckily, not luckily, but like when COVID happened, the state was just wrapping up their economic strategic plan. So a lot of the ARPA funding went into, we just came up with this statewide plan and we're expecting local municipalities to execute on this, but how can we expect them to do that without having the funding? So there was people there who decided that these programs would help to execute on the statewide plan, and it's been really helpful. Yeah. So yeah, I can put that together for probably the last 3 fiscal years, and I think it would be pretty impressive.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tina?
No.
Come on.
But you made this nice new handout.
It's in the next section 5 now,
Oh.
but Tina has updates, so she just use what she passed.
Are we-
I think I gave you yours. Sorry, Jim. You were at the clerk's counter.
Oh, yeah, what's that? That was like 3.5 hours ago.
6, 7 hours ago, you're welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure. If not, thank you.
Wait, was this still today that you handed this
I'm
out, or was
sorry.
this yesterday?
I'm the idiot.
Just kidding.
So close yet so far. But I can't wait. This is great.
So I'm really praying that my old brain will function this late at night.
Agreed.
Am I waiting for?
Don't wait, just
Dive
keep
right
going.
Okay.
If you have
Payroll.
to, if you have to pee, you just give up whatever
That's
knowledge you
right.
were gonna obtain in that time. It's a decision we all must make for ourselves.
So no change to payroll. As Carrie had mentioned earlier this evening, we are planning on sharing, an assistant. And she explained that fairly well, so her explanation is the same as mine. I increased my overtime budget due to the fact that in the past 20 years-ish, I've just kind of chopped up my overtime and my weekends and my nights.
Tina, actually, I don't want to interrupt you, sorry. I think just a note about the assistant piece, just like how important it is for both those departments. Currently, Elizabeth is helping serve as the assistant for general assistance.
Yes,
And
thank you,
so,
Matt.
because she is leaving, there's definitely a need for someone to fill that role, moving forward.
I
And then-
have been using Elizabeth.
Yes, and then, yeah, HR definitely needs an assistant too, but it's different. That person doesn't exist right now, not just leaving, so, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, because my brain's tired, so. Anyway, on the overtime, I'm just looking to get reimbursed for my time on my weekends and nighttime emergency calls, which in the past I've never put in for it, but it's been so frequent that it's taking a lot of my time, and I just kind of wanted to get reimbursed for that time that I'm spending.
Are you actually on call?
24 hours a day.
7 days a week?
Yes, I am.
And so Tina is unique as a department head to not be salaried, she is hourly.
That's one of the questions I've got, yeah.
Right, I'm not salaried.
Yeah.
And someone covers for you when you're like on vacation at least?
No.
Because that's not really sustainable for one human being.
Well,
Separate
working
from
on
the-
20
Tina,
years.
Separate from the budget thing, that's not a healthy choice.
Well, it has increased.
Yeah.
This past 2 years, I would say, actually, so I'm hoping the assistant that I get, I'm going to properly train
Yes.
to
Then you
help
can
me.
trade weekends.
If I want to leave and I'm able to take a vacation, or something like that, and they can step in my place. Would be super helpful. Travel expense, I just increased it due to the assistant that, hopefully we'll be getting, because that person will need some training, especially from the general assistant side. It takes a little bit of multiple classes to be able to learn the whole process of it. And dues and memberships, no change, because I had previously budgeted for 2 people, because the last person that was helping me, I got a membership for. Office equipment, no change. I have added e-signatures. Couple reasons. The first one is, I have recently switched general assistants to strictly pretty much phone interviews, more so for my safety. I've had a couple incidences, and Glenn had mentioned that at that time that it might be conducive just to go to phone interviews for my safety at this point, so. Plus I'm in the janitor's closet, that doesn't help. I have a really small office.
It's the most murdery office of them all.
How do you verify as the people
can go out
that,
the window.
how do you get that information and then?
So, glad you asked that. So, IT has set up something through Rever, and it tracks the path of the signature. So it would withstand in court. That's why there's a fee involved in this, because the e-signature tracks where it goes, who it's going to, the signature, the time. There's a whole process of it, and it actually works pretty slick. I've literally just started using it this past month, so I'm still kind of working with it, but I think it will work well. Does that answer your question or no?
No, well, no, so how do you verify it's the person that do they have to come in and still submit paperwork and then you do the interview over the phone, or?
You mean just the GA process?
Yeah,
They have to provide me a bunch of paperwork.
they do, and then you'll have a
Correct,
conversation
yeah.
with them, okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
They have to provide me with their ID, social security information.
Okay.
It's a pretty big process for them to apply, so. And, the following accounts after that are all the reimbursable accounts from the state. I did put those all together. Did you notice that? 'Cause
I did, thank you.
Okay. I mean, to make it easier for you guys to understand what accounts are reimbursable and what accounts are not.
Are they fully reimbursable?
It's like
Currently, it's 70%.
When does it go to 100? Is it hit?
Yeah, there's a threshold the state issues to, per municipality. I think actually it's county currently, but, and if the municipality meets that threshold, then the state will reimburse the city 100%. We've never met that. However, recently, I'm scared that we might.
Is it a per capita amount, or it's like a total, like if you get over X amount?
Correct. So, they set a number.
Just
So
a
I
number.
believe our last year was 247,000.
Okay.
If we met that. Yeah. And
So,
if-
oh, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
So the number, the total, so I'm looking at power, $2,200. That's what we budget for, but we would get reimbursed 70% of that $2,200?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's the same for everything else, I'm assuming?
That is correct.
Great, thank
Yep.
you.
Except for miscellaneous.
Oh, did I not put,
That's under here, that shouldn't be under here. Yeah.
sorry. Man, I was doing so good.
Okay.
So, what is the time from you dispersed $1,000? What's the time frame before the $700 comes in from the state?
Good question. I do monthly reporting to the state. So I send them in monthly, depends on if the state's far behind or not. But they've been currently doing it the following month. So they've been actually on top of it. Previous years, they've been a couple months behind, but recently we're pretty up to date, so.
So history has said that it's within 90 days.
Yep, yeah. Within the past year, it's been, yeah, a pretty quick turnaround, so. Sorry, I have no idea where I was.
You're in Ellsworth.
Housing, on
Miscellaneous
housing.
should be under operational costs, because the city won't get reimbursed for, those items.
Housing, I had a significant increase, due to obviously the need in the area. The rent costs have skyrocketed, and they're continuing to skyrocket, unfortunately.
Do you know what's been spent this
currently?
year?
It's, on
Through-
the chart, it's.
Is that as of today?
Yeah, the
315.
85,500 for housing specifically.
Is that household?
No,
Housing.
households, separate.
That gets paid out as like stipends or as reimbursements for rent or as direct, or how's that paid out?
The city, it's a voucher program, so are you asking how they get the money?
Yeah, I guess the voucher was the answer.
Right,
the
it's
landlord,
a
yeah.
voucher
And the
program.
landlord, we pay them directly.
Right, the monies never go towards are never given to the applicant. It strictly goes to whatever they're looking for assistance with. So it would go strictly to the landlord. It would never go to the client.
So, last year we budgeted for the housing 32,000, and we've already spent 85,000 of that 32,000.
We've spent, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Food, I have no change. Miscellaneous, no change. I did describe what was in the miscellaneous budget, if anybody was wondering what gets paid out of that. Medical, no change. Household personal, I put another description in there, what that's included. Burials and cremations, no change, and heat, no change. I did want to throw in that I do have the 2 donation funds that I still currently work on throughout the year, trying to get funding for that, which is strictly
That's
donation.
A heating one, and what's the other one?
It's the Backpacks for Kids and the
Yeah.
Christmas for Kids program. It's actually it's called Cans for Kids program, because all of the money from the cans that are donated at the transfer station go towards that fund.
Yeah.
So,
So I have a question.
Sure.
If we've already spent 85,000 on housing this year, should we make the budget for next year higher than 72?
well, that was me increasing it that much. I am in hopes that, DCP and a couple other agencies are gonna have more funding this year. But, I mean, I can increase it, I just thought $40,000 was a pretty large increase.
Yeah.
But if we wanna go off actual numbers, then I probably should increase it
I
to
mean, how
80.
do you actually manage?
What do you mean?
I mean, if we budgeted 32,000 for last year and we've already spent 85,000.
I'm in the
like-
negative.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Plus we get
It's
reimbursed.
so hard to predict,
Yeah,
though.
for some of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, as long as you don't spend that 70% over. like,
Right,
you're
because
gonna
I
make
do
the
get the money
70%
back. I get 70% of that money
Yeah,
back.
okay, so we actually budget, I'm sorry, I think
We
I.
spend 30% of the total cost.
That's right, yeah, right. Right, so we're
And these
actually
costs
budgeting-
are the overall
Right. I
amount,
just
it's
wasn't
not
thinking about
the
that
monies
right.
that we're getting back.
I understand.
Okay.
So Tina, in your heat line, you had 5650 in there, but as of last Friday, you'd only spent $429. Do you,
I'll have to look into that. Well, no, maybe. See, the heating, I can actually refer them to DCP.
okay.
So I require them to search other agencies that have funding first, before they use the city's monies. So the heating one is an easy one to refer them to DCP.
Okay.
However, as of March 1st, DCP has no more funding.
all right.
So,
That is-
right. And I have that donation-only fund for heating, which has come in handy this year because a lot of people that are applying don't qualify for GA. So that's when I would use that fund. So, and it's mostly my elderly folks who are on disability or, not disability, I mean social security, that usually need that additional help for their heating, so. This is the first time I've been here on admin night. It's usual social
I know,
services.
right?
So, it's my first experience of admin.
What do you think?
I don't know, I think I might go back to social services.
It's long, but it's less emotionally fraught.
That is true.
Right, you're like stapler,
Well, I think I have to still go to. Am I all set? Any
I
other
love
questions?
staplers.
Okay.
Did you?
I was gonna thumbs up, like I
Oh, okay.
said.
I have one thought, and I'm sure there's many rules and regulations and all that, but do Ellsworth residents get favored in Ellsworth general assistance?
We only help Ellsworth residents.
That's not true.
Actually, true, I take that back. If they say they're homeless, they automatically qualify for general assistance.
We cannot deny them.
Correct.
Basically. if
But
you don't
otherwise
have a
than that,
home
they
and
have
you're
to be an Ellsworth resident, so.
Well, okay, so, and I don't wanna stretch this night any longer, but,
Mhm.
so, when you say that you have to, there's some rule somewhere that
Yep, it's in the ordinance.
Ellsworth City would?
Yep, we adopt the Maine municipal ordinance every year, and it's in that ordinance that states that, yep.
So if they're homeless, they're automatic Ellsworth residents? Where's that?
Well, so yeah, so if someone is residing, without a home, but residing somewhere in Bangor, or spending their time in Bangor, but happen to end up in Ellsworth one day, they hear about Tina's office, they go into her office or give her a call and say, I need help. It doesn't matter if they came from Bangor, Tina is now responsible to help that individual.
However,
However,
Tina does her homework. and asks them.
In lieu of sleeping or going on vacation.
And Tina asks them where they came, because I make sure that I dot my i's and cross my t's and make sure the previous municipality did not pay general assistance within the last 30 days. Because they would have already received that money and they can't double dip, so.
Yeah, they can't just go around to all different towns.
Oh, they try.
I was gonna say, assuming they are.
Yeah, many times, you hear that, well, they were just here yesterday and got $600 from us. So you definitely have to make sure that they're not trying to take advantage of the program, so. A lot of heavy sighs.
They're tired.
Yeah.
This isn't the way to end
That was a
the
yawn.
I know, this is a
Wasn't a sigh,
bad,
it was a
this is a
yawn.
bad budget to go over at the end of the night.
If nothing else, I think you're good.
I'm all set unless you guys are
Thanks,
done with me.
Tina.
Okay, thanks.
Jim, you're up.
Save the worst for last?
This is section 9.
Jana was hard to follow, because she's so fabulous.
Bye, Tina.
Well, she had so much fun stuff. Where's this? What is in this?
Section 9. It's facilities.
I've just put my jacket.
Night.
Which
No,
one of these buttons?
crank that little,
Yeah, turn the
Persona button there.
If only there was somebody here who knew facilities, who would know.
right? Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Thank you.
You can have
All
whatever
right.
you want. Can we go home?
Down and dirty. I don't have a flow chart or anything, so I hope what I
This is all
submitted
they
to
have
you
too,
was
yeah.
turned into them, so
Yeah.
they can, okay. Cool, last year was a little foolish.
That's my fault, you guys. I didn't know that we were doing this.
Well, I wouldn't have the flow chart anyway.
I didn't do that.
Anyway, so payroll is the same as last year, plus a COLA from 23-24 to the current amount. Power, based on our current averages, I request increasing it a couple thousand. And water, same thing. Last year was my first year, so I really didn't have much to go on. Getting a little better handle on things as far as what actual expenses are costing the city. Training, I prefer to keep it the same, again, same reasons. I may at some point come across something that behooves my position.
Jim, can I actually just step in real quick? Because when I was reviewing Jim's budget, I was reviewing this page first without having looked at the whole thing. This is only for City Hall specifically, and there will be another page that adds other city properties called miscellaneous city properties.
Okay.
Just to keep that in mind.
I see. It does actually say so.
It
Yep.
does, yeah.
I didn't notice it
Supplies, no change, has a to date, the to date is, I know on the second page there is a date on it because I submitted several, revisions, but the actual expenditure to date was dated back in, when were these actually due, February, 1st of February?
Beginning of February.
Beginning of February, so any of these expended to date numbers are based on back in February. I never had the opportunity to update them. Vehicle maintenance, question to keep the same. Building maintenance, requesting an increase. They explained in their, some of the contracts that come out of that every year, maintenance issues that come out of that every year. The one-time increase request is in there. Vehicle fuel, again, that line's been overdrawn. I requested a $1,500 increase in that. I do put on quite a few miles, I'm all over the city. My position's kind of morphed into more than just City Hall and looking after everything as far as city property buildings go. Heat budget, I just got some numbers yesterday. We're gonna be able to lock in for about 20 cents a gallon cheaper than we currently locked in this year. although I haven't got the total gallonage yet, he just gave me a price of $295.9. We're currently paying, I think, $315 or $313.9 for this fiscal year. So that will go down. When I put it together, I didn't have any numbers, so I was just throwing $5,000 in there as a safety net. Once I get the total amount of gallonage citywide for the school department and all the other different departments, I will get City Hall amount, and then I can adjust that. Uniforms, no change. Oh, also, no, I think that was it on City Hall. Questions on City Hall? No questions on City Hall? All right.
Sorry, the building maintenance, the $9,000.
Yep.
Is that the standing desk you were?
No. This is something that the clerk and the tax office approached the previous city manager about removing the sweeping countertops that are out there now because they're not ergonomically, they're just not, they don't work well for the clerks because of some of the stations are on the outswept part of it, so their actual workstations away from them. So I came up with a design, basically as I said in my notes, repurposing all the bases, just buying new countertops, and I will build new face cabinets. And it basically will just be an L shape now, a straight. Clerk's office is gonna, the clerk's desk would move forward towards the glass administration door to allow more space for the clerk's office. It would just be a straight counter with I think there's one 4-foot L coming off the backside of that counter to encompass a workstation. Then the tax office would be connecting with a gate, lockable gateway for security based on what the FBI explained to the clerks. Doesn't have to be a full door, 3/4 door, but it needs to lock. You're supposed to be able to control access. That'll be a straight counter going up, tying into where it currently ties in that little stub wall up by the entrance, with two 6-foot wings coming off in that for each workstation. So each clerk that works at the tax counter will have basically an L-shaped type work area. Be able to repurpose the stands and computers that are there. The biggest single expense is going to be the countertops. It's about $4,500 for countertops. And that's it.
Cool. Sounds nice.
Yeah, the bases and drawers and cabinets there's nothing wrong with them. So we could repurpose all of that and save a great deal of money. It's unfortunate, I mean, it is a cool looking counter, I think.
Yeah,
but-
it's attractive.
Yeah, but it's just, it doesn't work, as I'm told, it doesn't work well for the people that have to work there. Just, there's no workspace for them, the way it sweeps out,
You can
sweeps in.
imagine if all your stuff is like
Yeah,
that way.
if you're on the out part of the curve, your workstation is away from you, to get to any tabletop. So,
I think moving the clerks forward a bit makes them just more visibly present, because right now they're kind of behind that
Yeah, right.
Post.
pole there, yeah.
We bring them up to the post.
So there should be benefits for customer
And
service too.
you'll close
that way.
off the whole, like we had it in Goldsboro where it's closed off and people can't come back, right?
There's gonna be, yeah, but
Like where we have the
where the
Dutch door?
clerk, where the clerk's counter will come out, the tax counter will come down, and then there'll be a lockable, 3/4 door right there. Originally, they wanted to connect the two, but according to the fire inspector and the previous city manager, there needed to be egress, something about the fire code, you can't go through another common area. So we needed to maintain that open point that's currently there, but with a lockable type gate or three-quarter door. That's it. Miscellaneous property. So Knowlton Park, I reduced the budget there based on the actual expenditures of what we've been expending in Knowlton Park. Been able to save some money, doing a lot of the stuff in-house up there, which we contracted out before. Moore Center, again, that's been, I guess, a point of confusion. City's been paying for their utilities for the last couple of years. We've now gotten a handle on that and gotten it straightened around, so they're being billed, we're being reimbursed, so that 14.5 is currently way overspent for this current year. However, I didn't have the revenue account, I guess it would be, because she's billing them out for telephone, internet, and electricity. And she bills it out and it comes back into one account that I don't see, so I don't know what's in there. All I see is the budget line and what we spend out every month on Verson. So that 25,806 back in February is what we've spent. I don't know if Ann has current numbers of what has actually been paid back to the city.
Actually, I netted it out of their second half of their stipend that they get. 'Cause they've never paid for any of it.
By
I'm not
contract.
surprised.
Well, by contract, they're
I don't-
liable, and it just fell through the cracks.
I
As
mean, no
far
one's
as,
ever billed them for it in years since that contract started, that we could tell. And they never said anything, like, hey, what about our bill? So I just
Shocking.
netted it out.
yes, it's a good chunk of change. It's,
For a time, I don't, yeah, so they were, I mean, we're talking like 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
probably.
Simmons Pond property kind of morphed into my radar. That is the fire training site and the police firing range. There's a couple of storage buildings up there that I've been tasked with doing some small maintenance lines on, small maintenance items on. They had a break-in a while back, a couple of years ago, that really never got remediated properly. So I was asked to just kind of submit a budget line, and what we've expended to date and what I can foresee spending to the end of June, that amount's adequate. SK Whiting, we've always had $250 in there for the clock maintenance. However, the grass care, I was asked to break out the fertilization, lawn fertilization. That used to always get put into planting and park maintenance, something in there for SK Whiting, and the previous city manager asked me to break out the SK Whiting amount and budget for it like I do for Knowlton Park, the Myers Field, and I think there's one other that we have a budget line for, and the lawn fertilization comes out of their own accounts. So that's what the increase is, from 250 to 650. It's kind of a wash. That extra money's gonna come out of another line, then get put into that line. The North Ellsworth Tower, initially I had reduced that, and then I was made aware of an inspection done, as I noted in the notes here. Matt suggested that we keep that amount, but encumber the monies that weren't spent this year on the North Ellsworth Tower, which is the communications tower that fire and EMS and police all dispatch from. I've contacted a local contractor, Tammy, if you could kinda ask Rob about it. If it's something that they was interested in, or if they could recommend somebody to do I could talk to about the maintenance issue on the towers.
Yep.
Would be awesome. So there would be no funding that line this year. We just encumber what's currently in there that hasn't been expended. And the biggie is planting and park maintenance. So, that is the High Street beautification, all the flower gardens in the parks. The contractor that, was awarded the bid last year, for very small money. Apparently there was a lot of complaints. Glenn was not happy with the results, and he didn't tell me the exact number, but he did say a couple of you, and I don't know if it's this current board, but he said there was a couple of councilors that also had notified him that they weren't happy with the performance of the contractor, and his intention was to cancel the contract with the current contractor, which is a 3-year contract, and put it back out to bid. And in the contract, there is a 30-day clause that we can just provide writing and cancel the contract with 30-day notice. Matt's working on, when he's able to, have time to eat lunch, maybe he'll do it on a lunch break. Notifying the contractor that the city intends to cancel the contract and we're gonna put it out to bid. That $65,000 was an increase based on I think you were here, Steve, the other 2 bids that we got were 55-ish, if I remember correctly, somewhere. They were in the 50s. I know the current contractor was 14.5.
I thought it was around 39, was 38, 39, and then the 14.
I'm pretty sure they both were.
Well,
One
may
was,
have it
I
wrong.
think, one was like 55 and one was 49, and then the current contractor was 14.5, and he dropped each year by 1,000.
Does less.
Yeah, I guess. So that 65,000, of course, is gonna be adjusted once we get bids. I'm hoping that the amounts are comparable, the bids anyway, to what we received last year. There is gonna be a little bit more in the bids. Adam took me around, because when I put the bids together last year, I was going by what Glenn thought. He wasn't 100% sure. Adam took me around a couple of weeks ago and said, historically, this was done, this was done, this was done, this was done. Okay, well, included in the bids. So that's where that number comes from. And then miscellaneous expense, I cut that down just because I got looking at it, and historically, nothing was spent out of it. However, we did come across an issue recently that fits this category perfectly. The property at
16
Central Ave, 16 Central Avenue. So, all the windows and doors have been busted out of it. People have gone in and just completely trashed the inside, which is fine, because the house is slated for demolition anyway. However, the city, as I'm told by Lori and Code, when they register ownership of it, it needs to be insured, and it needs to be secured before they'll insure it. And the stipulations that we get from MMA is that all ground floor openings need to be boarded up, needs to be posted, no trespassing, and they wanted a temporary security fence installed. So this is the structure the chimney fell off. So kind of battling, pushing back on this temporary security fence, because all the ground floor structure, all the ground floor openings, doors and windows and any voids, I'm going to plywood, And I've already posted it, no trespassing around the entire building. So the police will be periodically checking it as they do now. So we're kind of pushing back on the fence thing because that's just totally A, expensive, and B, a waste of money. But in the past, I have changed locks on property the city has acquired by taxes, and I've always just taken the money out of the facilities budget, because there's no budget line for, $100 worth of lock sets. So, once Matt and I discussed this line, we both kind of said, eureka, that's the perfect line for this type of application. It's an unbudgeted expense that, on city property, as far as if it's tax acquired, or in this case, I don't know if is she doing it by eminent domain? Or
Eminent domain,
abandoned that kind of thing. So, but I still think that $2,000 is a little excessive. $750 probably would be adequate.
As long as you don't need a fence.
As long as we ain't gonna put up a fence, because if we're gonna put up a fence, then forget it. I mean, maybe I can buy a snow fence and put wooden stakes in the ground, no call it good. I don't know.
Blue tarp, I hear that.
Yeah, blue tarp.
Please state.
And tomorrow I plan on starting to secure all the openings on that building if it's not snowing out. So that's it.
This could be a crazy question, but, and I'm sure there's a good answer for it, but if this building was condemned and the chimney fell off and now you're boarding it up,
Yeah.
at what point do we stop all that and tear it down?
Well, it's on the to-do list.
It's slated to be torn down as part of the requirement from MMA. It needs to be demolished by December of this year, I think it is. And I think it's just a matter of, we need to secure it now so we can get it insured. I'm trying to work something out with Highway. There was the biggest issue was when she had it inspected by Andrew McCullough, maybe?
McCullough, yeah.
McCullough, I think it was. He denoted lead paint. So we had to jump through some hoops for that. I contacted an abater that gave her some good ideas and some good pointers, and that we don't have to abate the paint prior to demolition, which would have been it would make you guys want to step in front of a bus, 'cause anyway, that's not the case now. He explained to her the legality of it, and so now it's just a matter of gonna try to work with Adam to see if Highway can do it. If not, then she's probably gonna have to put it up to bid for the demolition and removal of the debris.
Just as a preface for all of that, there was evidence that people had been inside the building recently. It wasn't just like windows were broken, it was people had entered the building actually.
Oh, no, yeah, I was in there today.
Yeah.
Somebody actually used one of the rooms for a toilet.
Yeah.
You did clean it up, right?
Oh, yeah, bleach. I found a little doggy poop thingy out back there. No.
It looks like it used to be an amazing home.
It was
Oh,
an amazing
there's a
home.
beautiful hand-carved
Yeah, I think it's
archway.
up there.
Well, what used to be a beautiful hand-carved archway going from the kitchen to a pantry. Yeah.
Any way to save any of that before
Oh,
it gets
no,
demolished?
it's leaked so
Decades
bad
too
that
late.
everything's molded and rotten and decomposed, and
It's too bad. Beautiful.
floor's all caved in on the first floor.
Casey?
I just had two questions.
Hmm?
And I know I was peeing during one, and I made a rule that you can't ask questions about stuff if you have to pee, but, I thought the Public Works
You want me
Department.
to wait?
No, I already went, so I missed,
Oh.
if you already said this, I apologize. I thought the Public Works Department maintained like the cleaning and stuff of the Knowlton Park.
They do lawn mowing, stuff like that. I do the repairs, physical structure maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
Maintenance on the swings, kind of morphed into my, Adam said, hey, here you
You
go.
can have this.
You can have this. They do the lawn mowing, empty the trash.
Okay.
I go up once a week in the summertime, pick up stuff that's left around. His guys are busy.
Yeah, I ask only because we had some citizens asking to keep the trash cans open in the winter, and at that time it was Public Works who didn't
Public
wanna do
Works still does the trash cans.
Yeah.
They're not, that would be an Adam thing. You'd have to ask Adam about that.
And then my other question about the whole planting and park on High Street is there a way to involve the Arbor Commission as we go through that process? I know they have pretty strong thoughts about High Street and thoughts about kind of what kinds of trees get planted and stuff like that. I don't know what best way to loop them in.
The last year's contract, and again, last year was my first year, so don't hold my feet to the fire too hard, but, the information that I got was that the bid specs were to tear out the flower beds along, because they're all basically overgrown. Some of them he did do, I mean, some of them have been cleaned up and mulched. Revive the plants that were there, which the current contractor, there's some kind of, I'm not a garden guy, so I couldn't tell you exactly what the plants were, lily or something like that, that he split and replanted. There's no tree planting. It was, I was told it was $2,000 to buy flowers to plant along High Street and in the different parks,
Yeah.
and to remulch them.
I guess when you do that whole bid process, if you think of it in your mind, can you send me the bids that you get before you bring them to before council, just so I can
Yeah.
just update
Yeah.
Arbor Commission and see if they have any like particular thoughts?
Yeah, it pretty much will be this, near as I can tell, the same bid I put out last year. Just that when I take people around to show them the areas, because last year I took all three contractors that bid around, so it would be apples to apples, and showed them exactly what areas and what the city was expecting. It'll just be some more areas of overgrown flower beds that need to be, I don't know, rototilled or ripped out and remulched, and, you know, because now it's just like a field, overgrown grass.
And I've had a conversation with the Arbor Commission, like High Street's difficult for trees. There's a specific part of High Street near Cardbrook that they're looking to do planting on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like this, so like if there were tree planting included in the bid, which doesn't sound like there would be, then conversation with them about what types of trees would make sense. Be useful, but for most of like the regular maintenance and putting in flower beds or brush, it's not tree related really, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The hard part with trees, as I'm told, is the road salt.
Yeah, it kills.
Yeah, no, and I don't know anything about, I'm on the Arbor Commission, I don't know anything about trees. It just said flower beds and trees in City Park, so
Yeah.
I know they have some opinions about things that have been done in the past, and it would be a shame to have them there and then not use them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there was High Street, City Hall, Knowlton Park, a little bit of Merrill Park, and a little bit of Harbor Park, I think, were the locations. And it was, yeah, basically just cleaning up, reviving what's currently there. There's a lot of them have like an annual that comes up every year. And then replanting some, you know, stuff that's flowers that are good for the year, and you gotta replant them next year, type of deal, that kind of deal.
All right, any more questions?
Looks like a good tree warden there.
Wrong.
That's the position everyone wants, right? The tree
I
warden.
burn wood.
The Arbor Commission is working on a job description for a real actual tree warden.
Tree, okay.
Yeah, that's right, an arborist.
Tree warden is not gonna be a joke position any longer.
But it might be Parks and Rec.
There might be Parks and Rec.
All right, we got one more
So,
left.
good job for Matt.
Is it technology?
Technology, yeah,
What about Kobe?
that's technology.
Oh,
I thought he said we can do it another time.
Yeah, could we do that maybe tomorrow?
No,
night
we
after
are
the-
done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Two late nights, are you guys in a row?
I told Patrick this was gonna be an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know, I would, hey, Jason.
It's been,
I think next year you should do administration and
Won't take
and city
too long.
manager in one day. Do it one night and then do everybody else the next night.
Oh, you mean you don't wanna be included in
I'm
this?
in like.
No, it's
Yeah, I
just
mean, I'm
that
not- it's
your
not
part
productive at
and
this
Tony's
point.
part
No, I know.
took longer than everybody else's.
I'll listen to Jason.
Oh, yeah.
If he's gonna be here tomorrow. then-
because we literally don't care and now we're just regretting
These
decisions we've made in the
certificates
past.
too, that one
Yeah,
just-
no, I was just gonna-
Could take
Well, we
them
have to
for-
learn about the
To find out if Susan.
Versus,
Yeah, he's gonna be
these are things I can.
every single night.
But, so are you, so. Civil service.
And then like another job.
We're gonna need food if we're gonna this late. I guess we'll wait until it all.
I shoved a little food in my mouth before I came here, but it wasn't enough food.
I brought an Asian pear.
Yeah, that's not
I
enough
don't
food.
think I've eaten since recognition.
Do you want these staplers back for, these paper clips back for your budget?
That's okay. I think the joint office supply gets funded, I think we'll be okay.
Are we?
Motion to adjourn, do we have?
Everyone except you wants to go home.
So we're done.
So we're done.
How much? Yeah.
Oh, no.